call our meeting to order. This is the Urban Renewal Agency meeting for the City of Salem for July 28th, 2014. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Bennett.
Here.
Board Member Tesler.
Present.
Board Member Nanke.
Here.
Board Member Clausen is absent. Board Member Dickey.
Here.
Board Member Rogers.
Here.
Board Member Benars.
Here.
Board Member Clem.
Here.
Chair Peterson.
Here. Thank you. Will you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance We need a motion for the approval of special meeting agenda. Member Bennett, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move approval of the special meeting agenda for the Salem Urban Renewal Agency for July 28th.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Tesler to approve the special meeting agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We now have time for public comment. Do we have anyone signed up? No one has signed up. Was there anyone in the chambers this evening that did want to comment on agenda items other than anything for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes? All right. Would
I
you?
tried to sign up. I don't
Oh,
know.
sorry.
You're in the next meeting, sir. I'm in the next meeting.
For the next meeting,
I'll
we'll
just
make
sit
sure
right
that
here.
you get on the list. Okay, if you're not on the list, we'll get you on the list. Thank you. All right. If there's no public comment, we'll move to resolutions. Member Bennett, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move Resolution 4A, the staff recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Dickey to move the staff recommendation on the resolution 4A. Is there discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, this is a series of changes to the North Gateway Urban Renewal Area Toolbox Loan and Grant programs to bring them more in line with what people need.
Wonderful. Is there any further discussion? All right. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by yes by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I do call your attention to an information report that's in our binder. And beyond that, we have no further business for the Urban Renewal Agency, and we are adjourned. There we go. All right. I'd like to now call to order this evening's meeting for the Salem City Council for the City of Salem for July 28, 2014. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Tesler.
Present.
Councilor Nanke. Councilor Clausen is absent. Councilor Dickey. Councilor Rogers.
Here.
Councilor Benars.
Here.
Councilor Clem.
Here.
Mayor Peterson.
Here. Thank you. I would now entertain a motion for the approval of additions and deletions to the agenda. Councilor Bennett?
Madam Mayor, I move the additions and deletions to the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Benars to approve the additions and deletions to the agenda. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We now have time for council and city manager comment. Do councilors have any comments this evening? Yes, Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two things. Wanted to thank Public Works for completing a section of sidewalk at a bus stop over on Rickey Street that members of the community have been in contact with me over for a year or so. And they were out there like Wednesday last week, and I think Friday it was done and they were packed up and moving. So
Great.
wonderful on that. Another quick thing, 20 days ago, I pay my water bill automatically. So I don't open my water bill a lot. And I opened it, and I had 5 units, 5 units, 5 units, 4 units, 17 units. Called the city to come out and look at my meter. He said, oh yeah, and they read the meter again yesterday for your building, and it was 35 units of usage. I had a pipe going somewhere. I finally sawzalled through it and capped it over the weekend because I couldn't find it any other way. But just to encourage people to actually look at their bill every now and again, because you could be in for a rude awakening. You know, it's like normally $60 for 150, so that's resolved.
So you got that taken care of?
We did get that taken care of, but
Glad you
if I would have looked at my bill sooner, I could have caught it several weeks sooner as well.
Well, good. All right, lesson learned. Thank you. Other counselor comment? All right, city manager, I think you have some things.
I do. I have 2 things, Mayor. Thank you. Today, our police department had an award ceremony. They were recognizing a corporal and a sergeant promotions, 2 great people who I know will do a great job. And then they also had several life-saving awards. We had 4 incidents over this last year that could have had a tragic outcome and instead had good outcomes because of the courage and the clear thinking and the great use of their training among our police officers. So I just wanted to say how proud we all are of the men and women in our police department and in our 911 center, and they've made decisions that actually save people's lives when that would not have been the case if they hadn't been there and been so ready to act. So wanted to congratulate them on that. And then the mayor is allowing us, we have a very brief report on our quarterly investment report that I'd like to ask Sandra Montoya from our finance department to give under city manager comment rather than waiting until the end of the public hearings.
Good evening, Councilor and Mayor. Sandra Montoya, Assistant Finance Director. Last week on July 21st at the Finance Committee, which we have on the 3rd Monday of every month, I was able to give a report on the city's investments, and I was given the opportunity to share some really good news on the investment portfolio, and that is that for the first time since the recession of 2008, we are now able to purchase investments in the 2 to 3 year range above 1%. So I know that, for most people, that just, actually for all of us, it seems very, very low, but they are signs of an improving economy. We haven't had a whole lot of good news to share to the Finance Committee regarding the investment portfolio for a very long time because the rates had continued to drop. And so it was exciting, definitely on my desk, exciting to be able to purchase an investment again, yielding over 1%. So again, in that 2 to 3 year range, it's out a little bit, but it is still signs of an improving economy, and it's something that we should be celebrating, and I'm doing that on my desk, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by counselors or comment? All right.
Thank you.
I see a thumbs up. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate that report, and we appreciate the work. Tremendously important for all of us. Thank you. All right. If there are no further council comments, we will now move on to public comment. This is the time for public comment for agenda items other than our public hearings, which are a little bit later in the session. And I see 3 people who've signed up. And Shasta Romano, thank you. Followed by Margot Lucas.
And Mayor, we have a couple of people who've asked to have a microphone to speak from their place.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't notice that. Thank you, yes. And anyone this evening who would like to have a microphone to give testimony from their seat, we can provide that. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Shasta Romano, and I'm here on behalf of Herbal Grasslands. Can you hear me?
Not really very well. I wonder if you could assist her to make sure that's on.
Okay,
And
is
then
that
hold
better?
it right up to your mouth. Uh-huh.
I am a diabetic and a kidney dialysis patient, and I count on Herbal Grasslands and their availability to me to be able to get my meds. I live in South Salem off of Madrona Avenue. I do not travel well. I spend a lot of time very ill, and I count on the meds I get from them to get me through my day, just day to day. I do not eat unless I am basically forced. It's what gives me my appetite. But eating is painful and very uncomfortable, so it is also what relieves the pain and discomfort and makes me able to eat. Before I started using these products, I was not eating, and it was not worth it to me for the effort to eat. The pain and misery I went through was not worth the little bit of nourishment I got from the food, because I continuously vomited it up. Now, traveling is very uncomfortable for me. I deal with a great deal of motion sickness, and for me to have to take a bus from where I live to any place else would mean transferring at least once or twice each way to get to someplace to get what I need. And I personally cannot do that. I know many other people who are in the same position as I am. And if I had to start taking buses like that, I couldn't do it right now where I'm at. It's about 10 minutes each way for me to get from where I am now to Herbal Grasslands. It would be a great difficulty for me if this place was shut down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Do any counselors have questions? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your testimony today. Margot Lucas, and followed by, is this Gary Walker?
Doug Walker.
Doug Walker? Thank you.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, staff, law enforcement. I'm going to keep it really brief tonight. I'm looking forward to your presentation later. Just want to thank the City Council and the Mayor once again for retaining safe access to state medical marijuana patients here in the City of Salem. And I just want to give a brief reminder that we are talking about medical marijuana. Adult use legalization initiative does look like it's going to be on the ballot in November, but that's one of the reasons why I want to remind everybody we are talking about medical marijuana here. And the people who run these dispensaries in the city are going to be under the set of rules that you come up with for at least a couple of years. So let's continue to do a great job of it. We appreciate the fact that you've taken our input and spent a lot of time working with us. And that's about it. I think I'll leave it at that tonight.
Thank you, Margot. Are there any questions from counselors? Counselor Tessler and then Counselor Nanke.
I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Margot and Nolan and all the really great people that have been working with us on the task force to date, because not only have I been educated about how strict the rules are for medical marijuana, I really, really appreciate your willingness in working with the city and getting through this kind of confusing and sort of difficult time for all of us, and I just really wanted to commend you for doing that. And I really appreciate having responsible people at the table to talk to, and I think we're going to iron this out. And I feel confident that we'll come with a solution that we both can agree with and that can work for everyone. So I just wanted to thank you again for that.
Well, thank you.
All right, Counselor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming down tonight, Margot. In reading the staff report on that, it says, depending on how we separate and cite, most all of the facilities would not be able to be where they currently are, and we knew that was a potential problem before we started into this. What's the general feeling and potential for lease lost and that kind of stuff with the current operators?
Sorry, what was the question?
Basically, if everyone has to terminate their business at the locations they currently are,
Right.
Are they leasing? Are they locked into long-term stuff? What's the damage?
Well, I believe the worst-case scenario we have on the table right now would be the 250 feet zoning away from residential, and I believe that would leave, and Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that would leave 2 dispensaries up and running in their current positions. But of course, we're hoping that we won't go to that extreme. There's other options on the table that we're hoping everybody will be looking at. And we're hoping that we can get a grandfathering in of these 8 licensed dispensaries. We would really appreciate that.
Where the bug will actually end up being knowing that we had, those issues on the table beforehand. So we'll see what we can work through.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any further questions or comments for Margot? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And Doug Walker.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, I've recently returned to Salem, Oregon after living the last 5 years in Daytona Beach Shores, Florida. I would see panhandlers at intersections for a few days, and then they would be gone. A few times I saw police cars stop with police talking to the panhandlers. I assume those panhandlers who did not move were placed in jail. The next time I passed the intersection, the panhandlers were no longer there, which is a good thing. In the city of Salem and Marion County, the problem, as far as I'm concerned, has reached pandemic proportions. There are those who would say there's nowhere else for them to go. I feel this is incorrect, as there are social agencies such as the Salvation Army and the United Gospel, although I found out they have to not sign up to not be a panhandler to stay at the United Gospel, so that's kind of a catch-22 who would take them in. And there's temporary employment agencies. There's one right out by where I live, out by Meadow Lawn Golf Course, that have signs out, want to hire, show up at 7 o'clock. And others would say the courts have ruled panhandlers have a legal right to earn a living this way. They cite the high legal costs to defend lawsuits filed by ACLU or individual panhandlers. I say so be it. I think you will find that panhandlers are committing crimes against law-abiding citizens at an alarming rate, and the crimes costs are exceeding what the lawsuits would cost. So the amount of legal costs should not be a concern. And I bet there are law firms in Salem who would take offense of any lawsuit pro bono. The publicity, I would think, would be tremendous. Anyway, and I don't know, this really bothers me. I'm in the Walmart parking lot, and I get a gal, they have, I need $1. And I say no, and she gets into like a Toyota Camry and drives off. And I have another one who taps me on the shoulder, can I have this, can I have that? A gal who, on both ends of the Walmart parking lot, they need gas. And they need gas for like 3 days in a row. How long is it? Anyway, that's my testimony.
Ms. Brocker, we appreciate your testimony. Thanks very much for coming down this evening. All right, I don't see anyone else signed up on this agenda item, and then again, this is public comment for agenda items other than the public hearing. So it really needs to be an item that is on the agenda but not on public hearing. So is there anyone else in the chambers that wanted to speak at this point? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will now move to our consent calendar. Councilor Bennett, do you have a motion?
I do, Madam Mayor. I move the consent calendar with the note that Councilor Bernard's recuses himself on item 32A.
Okay. Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Bernard by Councilor Nanke to move the consent calendar with the notation that Councilor Warren Bernard will recuse himself on item 3.2A. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the question. All those in favor of the consent calendar signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we will now begin our public hearings, and I have a couple of sort of housekeeping items to share with you. I want to be certain that I have two things actually to share with you. One is that at the hearing on July 14th, an issue was raised regarding my participation in an advertisement by Salem Hospital and Salem Health. And I wish to state for the record that I did receive no compensation for that add, and I also participated partly to promote that Salem in general. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission staff reviewed the issue and found that there was no ethics violation. I'd also like to note that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission also informed us that there is no violation for those members of the council who participate in this matter this evening regarding Salem Health, who also sit on the Salem Hospital Review Authority. So I wanted to be sure that that is entered into the record this evening. And I believe that our city attorney has a statement to make regarding, or did you want me to do that one?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, good.
We are going to reorder the folks testifying tonight. If anyone has special needs or children in the audience and wish to testify at this public hearing, please come to the podium now, and we'll go ahead and get your testimony first, and then we'll move through the rest of the folks who have signed up.
And this is for the public hearing that has 4A, that has to do with the continuation of the public hearing on the Landmark Commission's decision regarding the historic design review regarding the demolition of Howard Hall. So if there's anyone, oh, I do need to open the hearing. All right, it's open. There we go. And for those of you who may not know, this is a hearing that's continued from 2 weeks ago. We also should note that if you testified previously, you are not eligible to testify this evening, although we certainly appreciate you coming down and participating at least in the evening.
Does that count?
Welcome.
Does that count if I testified in May? I didn't testify in July.
No, it's only the July 14th
The
meeting.
continuation?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Jenny, and my address is 5639 Lone Creek Court, South Salem. Thank you for holding this meeting. I am a mom to two amazing sons. I have one sitting right there, and then my Caleb just raised his hand. My youngest son, Caleb, experiences cerebral palsy, a disability that causes him to need a wheelchair. He needs to have a playground that he can safely play at. He also has been a client of Salem Rehab and learned to walk while he was there. I can only imagine how much he would have benefited more from outside therapy in a playground setting to learn how to safely navigate an outside environment. I know that the Crooked House Playground is going to be redone, and it will have pieces to it that are accessible, which is absolutely fantastic. It's going to have a ground cover that wheelchairs can get over, but it still doesn't compare to the one that the hospital is proposing. The space at the Crooked House is simply too small to work with to make it fully accessible. It also will still have a big play structure that kids in wheelchairs cannot get into. I appreciate that they're doing that, but it's going to be too small. Besides, our kids deserve more than one park that they can play at. All the kids in this city have dozens of parks they can go to. Why shouldn't our kids have the same opportunity to safely play at more than one park? I also personally knew many residents of the blind school. I had been in Howard Hall in the 80s. I would think that if the residents who were my friends then could be here now, that they would be excited of the proposed park and would have enjoyed playing there as well. It's absolutely heartbreaking to go to a playground and watch my son watch other children play. We simply don't go now. It happens in our neighborhood as well. We live on a very steep hill, and he cannot safely play on the sidewalk like every child in our neighborhood. Caleb is left standing at our fence crying. A while ago, he was in our front yard and asked the neighbors if they would come over and play with him. They said no. I know the reason. To them, it was boring to just play in the yard. Caleb was absolutely heartbroken and sobbing with his head down. He said, "Why wouldn't they play with me? They just don't like me." Can you imagine your childhood or your children's without being able to play at a park or your own street with your friends? It is every child's right to play safely, But what if there's nowhere to go? That's the reality that our kids face. All kids in this community deserve to have a place to safely play. Please consider this when deciding if this building, which would best be served intact as a building or as the land to be used for a beautiful playground that all kids can play and grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Are there any questions from counselors? All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming down. I am going to remind everyone this evening, you have 3 minutes for testimony at this point in this hearing. And when the amber light comes on, you finish 2 minutes. And then when the red light comes on, you finish 3 minutes. And I am going to be much more strict this evening, just as a courtesy to all those who are here and waiting to testify this evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm Patty Taylor. This is my daughter, Kimberly. We live at 14262 Weejokuma Lane Southeast, Turner. I'm here as president of the Willamette Valley Down Syndrome Association and as a parent of a child who experiences disability. While I personally do not live in Salem, I was born here, went to college here, worked here, shop here, access medical and dental services, and many of the families I represent do live in Salem, and Salem is where we hold our annual awareness and fundraising event, the Buddy Walk. Howard Hall has well served the needs of a particular group of children, those who are not able to see. The property has the opportunity now to meet the needs of an even larger group of children, those we do not see because they do not have a place to play. Before the birth of my daughter, who was my 7th child, I too did not realize that children with disabilities and their families had very few, if any, options for public play. They had become invisible. Since her birth, our family quit going to parks because of safety and her inability to use the equipment. Having the opportunity to access the playground that is being proposed would be a wonderful experience for children who have never whooshed down a slide because they cannot climb the ladder. And can you imagine the joy the families would experience when they get to watch that happen? Play not only benefits the one playing, it benefits the ones watching. Having a playground that is built for all to play on will provide the ability to become visible and become part of the general public, which is a benefit for everybody. Please allow the playground to be built. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Were there any questions from counselors? Counselor Clem.
Hi, thank you. Which association are you with?
Willamette Valley Down Syndrome Association.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else who wanted to testify at this moment? Okay, we're going to resume on our regular schedule. Okay, start down here. All right, thank you. Mary Beth Bell and then Brad Swank.
Thank you for going in order for
Welcome.
those of us that waited last week. I really appreciate it. Mayor Peterson and city councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Mary Beth Bell. I live at 1955 Fairmont Avenue South in Salem, and I'm here to testify both as a resident of Salem and in my professional capacity. First, I would like to speak as a resident of Scan. I've lived in this neighborhood for 33 years. I think it's a wonderful area. I really value its historic its nature. But the Scan Association's position on Howard Hall is one that appears to be only, or at least for certain, those of its active membership. I don't recall having been canvassed or surveyed regarding my opinion on the matter, and I wonder if other people have, and if that's really the feeling of the neighborhood at large. Now, I have really fond memories, having lived here so long, and driven by the School of the Blind for the Blind, of kids out walking with their guides, navigating the streets, crossing the streets, and I really miss that. And I think the inclusive playground and therapy garden would be a wonderful opportunity to bring that livelihood back to the neighborhood and the reality of everyone who lives in our community. I would oppose the demolition and replacement of any historic building if it were with a parking lot, as has happened too often in the past. I completely agree that that's a blot on Salem's history, but I don't think we should make this situation a scapegoat for past mistakes. I also think that the situation ought not to be a forum for people who hold grudges against the hospital or City Hall. Now, speaking in my professional capacity, I've worked in healthcare in this community for over 30-some years, way too long. I've never worked for Salem Health. I sometimes have been on the opposite side of what Salem Health has done. But what they are doing now is a wonderful community benefit, and why would we not support that? I'm getting close to the end, and just a few things that I'd like to say. It's really important to note this isn't just a park, it isn't just a playground. It's a therapy area, about the only area that could really work for therapy, right next to the new outpatient center that's going to be built. That's really a key factor in this whole decision. As far as the criteria, I believe the hospitals met the criteria. I believe they are open to interpretation, and it gets down to me to what the value is for the greater good of our community. And finally, I'd like to say, some have implied that building such a place for special needs children is a form of reverse discrimination. To me, this is very disturbing, and I must ask, as a society, does this mean that we are to offer opportunities for such things as recreation and education only to those that fit the typical and who are of the majority? I hope not, because that's not a place where I'd like to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Bell? Councilor Benars.
Thank you, Mayor
I think
Peterson.
there is a question for you.
Mary Beth, I'm very happy to have you down here today. Thank you for showing up. I happen to know that you've been involved in mental health for well over 30 years, probably approaching 40 years at this point. Don't push it. Okay.
Keep going.
But it's been a lot of years that you've given your life to people with needs of different sorts. You've worked a lot with children's mental health, adult mental health.
Yes.
Can you describe how this kind of therapy, this park, this can help specifically the people that you've worked with over all those years?
I could expand for hours on that. Just being out in nature is a huge one. This will also affect their families. So you're looking at it being a family support when siblings and families can participate. That's good for everybody's mental health and lowering stress levels. And really, the huge thing is you've got to practice in the real world what you're learning in a clinical setting, whether it's talk therapy, whether it's physical therapy, occupational. And this place, where it is, will do that.
Thank you, and I'm sorry about the snafu.
Yeah, forgiven.
Thank you very much. Brad Swank, followed by Jim Shepke. Is Mr. Swank here this evening? We're going off of, first of all, the sign-up sheet from 2 weeks ago, so there may be people on the list who didn't come this evening, but I will be reading their names. All right, Mr. Shepke, I think you're here. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, City Council, my name is Jim Shepke. I live in Ward 2, and I'm a member of the SCAN Board. For you to approve Salem Hospital's application to tear down Howard Hall tonight, you must find that they meet all 4 criteria in our city code that would allow you to make that decision. Your Historic Landmarks Commission, people with great expertise in this area, found that 3 of the criteria have not been met on a near unanimous vote, and that counts for a lot. I wish to speak to you about the first criterion having to do with the historic value of Howard Hall. Howard Hall has been designated as a Salem Historic Resource since 1990. It's the last building left on the former School for the Blind campus that was a very important part of our city for over a century. It has been deemed eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. It is the only Salem building designed by architect John Bennis, one of the most renowned Oregon architects of the early 20th century. Howard Hall was home to many hundreds of blind children who are now adults and elders, and they live throughout the state of Oregon, and it's a place that they cherish. Its historic value is unquestionable. I would remind you that the Oregon Heritage Commission, on which I served for 15 years, has designated Salem as an Oregon Heritage All-Star community. We should all be very proud of that. We deserve it because our record of historic preservation in recent decades has been exceptional. Salem is a destination for heritage tourism because we have preserved the Jason Lee House, the Bush House, the Thomas K. Woolen Mill, Deepwood, the Reed Opera House, the Grand Theater, Gilbert House, and the Elsinore Theater. We preserved the Kirkbride Building at the State Hospital. We're going to preserve Gaiety Hollow, the home of our famous landscape architects, Lord and Scriver. Some of you were on the council that worked to preserve the Union Street Bridge, and we thank you for that. The historic value of Howard Hall is, by any reasonable standard, equal to these structures that we have chosen to preserve in our city. As an Oregon Heritage All-Star community, we don't tear down historic landmarks in Salem, Oregon. And Salem Hospital needs to get that message. We value our heritage too much, and we understand the economic value of preserving our past. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions for Mr. Shepke? All right, thank you. The next name on the list is Kathleen, but I'm having difficulty with the last name. Maybe it's McJolan? I'm sure I'm not saying it correctly. Moynihan. All right, thank you. Are you Kathleen? Welcome. All right, Kathleen Moynihan.
Hi, Kathleen Moynihan, Moynihan, 425 Kearney Street, Southeast, 97302. Howard Hall. I am hoping that you will follow the lead of the Historical Landmark Commission and understanding the value of preserving the landmark of the blind community, which is Howard Hall. It is an integral part of Salem. It leads into Salem. It leads into historical downtown Salem. It leads to Bush Pasture Park. It leads to Lord and Shriver. It leads to what is left of a fragile historical neighborhood. But more importantly than that, it is a part of the Community for the Blind legacy. It is the last remaining piece of their dreams and their hopes when they came here throughout the state, where they found like-minded people who had the same issues that they did and worked together to be able to achieve employment on the outside and friends. And this is very important to them. This place, let me get down to where I'm supposed to be. I do find it really sad, if not, I find it amazing, frankly, that Salem Health would pit two special need groups against each other for one spot. As a health care facility, I'm just appalled at that. And as a registered nurse, I'm also appalled at that. You do not pit two special need groups against each other. And I really just have to say that. From day one, Salem Hospital, years ago when I was on scan, told us from the very beginning, they do not want Howard Hall. They don't care if it came with the property. They do not want it. They will only take care of it as much as that they have to by law. Other than that, they want it gone. No respect for the blind community. How a healthcare facility can say that is really incorrigible to me. My notes. When they had it up for sale, when you talked about that later, it was only up for sale for 30 days. Nothing sells for 30 days, and nothing did then. If you want to sell something, you can't keep it up for 30 days. Your family home was up for sale for more than 30 days, and it was important and had value. Salem Hospital, if they want to know what to do with something, you don't have to go to Boston, you don't have to go to Butte, Montana, second place for most historical buildings. You don't have to go to Tacoma. You can go to Center Street to see what they did at Kirkbride. You can see what they did with the Cremains building. And it's just, I'm done. But
thank you very much.
Please respect Howard Hall. And really, it's about the blind community. And this is so important to them. And to diss them is just unfathomable. I really have to say that. I cannot believe that as a healthcare facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Moynihan? All right, appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much. Lori Walsh. I think it's Lori Walkle. followed by Greg Bronson.
Hello, my name is Greg Bronson, and I live at 5552 Angle Drive Northeast in Salem. And I'm here basically to support what I consider to be the private property rights of Salem Hospital to demolish Howard Hall. Although I have a Salem address, I'd like to point out that I live in an unincorporated portion of Marion County. And the reason that's important is I'd like to point out that Salem Hospital is a regional resource for many people, including me, that do not live specifically in the city. So I'd like you to please consider that it's a regional resource. The last thing I have is, although I support the city staff's recommendation to overturn the unelected Historic Landmarks Commission recommendation, I find a condition on the staff report for a mandate of a perpetual park quite onerous. And I just want to keep in mind that perpetual and forever is a long, long time. So in summary, I consider it a private property right to they can do, and I think they've put together a good proposal for a park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Councilors, do you have any questions for Mr. Bronson? All right, thank you. Tom Anderson, followed by, well, we're going to work on this one. All right. I'm going to get a legal ruling on this name. Can you read that? Okay, he's working on it.
Dodier.
All right. Can we do that one? Welcome, Mr. Anderson.
Welcome. Thank you. My name is Tom Anderson. I live in Ward 2. I'm speaking as an individual tonight, but during the first go-round of the hospital's attempt to demolish Howard Hall, I was the president of SCAN, was also the chairman of the Land Use Committee, and I'd like to thank the hospital for being open and candid with us in their plans all the way through. They've been very cooperative in a number of issues on surrounding the School for the Blind property, and we thank them for that, and we appreciate it. I also have to say they've been open and candid in their desire from the get-go to get rid of Howard Hall. So I really am here to talk about good faith tonight. And before I go there, if I have time, I want to talk a little bit about delisting. It was mentioned in the staff report last 2 weeks ago that Salem Hospital could have delisted the property because of a letter that was written in 1990. Well, that's correct maybe as far as it goes, but that very issue is right now before LUBA, and the question is, does the delisting run with the land or does it run with the owners? So that's a decision that is not going to be made for many, many years. So to say that they could have delisted the property is really not factually true, because that's going to be awaiting a LUBA decision, and then after that it'll be awaiting a Court of Appeals decision. I know the hospital has said they will permanently keep the property up. I have to say that with respect to that, in good faith, I think we ought to look at two properties that the hospital owns and what they've done with the playgrounds there. There's a Bush School playground that was the first one that was developed for adaptive use and wheelchair use in 1990. That Bush School playground was destroyed by the hospital in 2003 when they built a parking lot. At the same time, there is no commemorative plaque there to Bush School, as was promised by the hospital. Same time, there's no replication of a plaque that the school children put there in honor of Native Chief Quimby, as promised by the hospital. There's also the Winter Street Mission Playground, which was destroyed by the hospital, which is on the school grounds. So I wonder if the people who were here tonight to testify from the adaptive playground use are aware of that's what the hospital's done, and I wonder if that actually relates to good faith. And I would also say I'm wondering if good faith is pitting the people who want adaptive playgrounds against the people who want to keep Howard Hall, because there's plenty of other place for adaptive playgrounds. Immediately after the first decision of the hospital, which through good lawyering, the Historic Landmarks Commission, which through good lawyering was withdrawn by the hospital before a written decision could be reached. After that, we approached the hospital and said, we are ready to establish Friends of Howard Hall, which will be the community people,
Sorry,
the,
Mr. Anderson,
all the
I am
blind
gonna have
people.
to
The
draw your
hospital
attention
said
to
no.
the red
Is
light.
that good faith?
Thank you. Are there any questions from counselors? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony.
I hope that in future my name won't be so quite so hard to figure out.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Victor Dodier. I'm the president this cycle for the Scan Neighborhood Association. I put
you.
my bad handwriting down to poor vision, which has been somewhat corrected. I'm here in opposition to the staff report to grant the demolition permit to Salem Health for the demolition of Howard Hall. I would submit that the use as a commemorative garden and adaptive playground does not serve the same purpose that Howard Hall does in historic preservation. That's a difficult position in this community because there is a tremendous lack of adaptive or even accessible playgrounds of any nature. That's a city obligation. It's not Salem Health's obligation. That's a citywide obligation. And we need to work our way through to figure out how to do that. SCAN, as a neighborhood association, a group of volunteers, has been doing our part for raising funds to rehabilitate, rebuild, and make an accessible playground of the Crooked House playground at Bush's Pasture Park. The proposal by Salem Health came late in the process. We've been discussing the former School for the Blind property and how that property would be developed with the Salem Health for the better part of 4 years. And the discussion of the commemorative garden adaptive playground came pretty late in the process, in March of this year. So and at that time the presentation had a lot of loose ends. It really hadn't been terribly well thought out. So I think that speaks to, at some level, to the good faith nature of this proposal. There could be productive uses of Howard Hall, productive reuses of Howard Hall. We don't know what they are, partly because the nature of the RFP process that was done with very short time windows and a number of conditions that perhaps could have been discussed with a longer period, but given a 30-day response time, not enough. Coming back to the playground, I think that an accessible playground is a possibility if it is necessary from a therapeutic standpoint. There's a lot of property in that School for the Blind property. In addition, there's Pringle Park, which had a playground, which was lost during one of our floods, but that could be used, and it's quite close to the rehabilitation facility that Salem Health proposes to build. In conclusion, I think that the accessible playgrounds in Salem are a necessity in this community, and that's a necessity for the city, not Salem Health, and not the community in various communities around the playgrounds around the community. The last point, if council does indeed grant the permit, the demolition permit, I would hope that the conditions be made more ironclad than most city conditions are typically made. That, in fact, the commemorative garden is built. In fact, the adaptive playground is built. Because that, in a sense, is what this whole conversation is about. And if we don't see those things, we will, I fear, have yet another parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Councillor Dickey, followed by Councillor Penards.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming down. I do have a couple questions for you. One, I want to make sure I understood you correctly in terms of the timing that they started talking about the adaptive playground, because I remember I attended a SCAN meeting well over a year ago, and I believe there was a presentation at that time where they were talking about putting an adaptive playground there.
I don't recall that. I recall this adaptive playground proposal coming in March of 2014.
And then I'm just curious about the Cricket House. That the project is something that the SCAN board is taking on, or
It
can
is
you
a
explain that?
city project. SCAN has assisted in fundraising. I believe collectively, city grants, state grants, private donations solicited by SCAN have raised on the order of $180,000. Am I correct? 170,000.
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks for doing that, because I know that that area at Bush Park does need some help, and I appreciate your work on that.
Councilor Bernard?
Thanks. Just a quick question. So you're here tonight. Are you speaking on behalf of SCAN? Is your position as chair of the SCAN board, or from your own position?
I am speaking for and on behalf of SCAN and for myself.
As well?
As
Okay.
well.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. All right, Davy Hulse, followed by Kyle Pine.
All right, my name is Davy Hulse. I'm one of those kids that was at the School for the Blind. I was there from 1961 to 1965. 125 years ago, some very forward-thinking, very compassionate people set aside some land to do rehabilitation for people like me. 70 years later, when I came, they had done wonderful things. There was a gymnasium with a swimming pool and a bowling alley and a wrestling area and all those kinds of things to help me as a child learn the skills so that I could take my rightful place as an adult to the best of my ability without regard to my blindness. Now we're looking at an old building, and I hear the word repurpose, redefine what's going to be done in it. And frankly, folks, as a blind guy, I don't care about old buildings. I travel a lot with my wife around the world. I don't get anything out of looking at old buildings. I'm sorry, but sighted people like visual symbolism. You know, I still don't know what color a gold statue is on top of my Capitol building. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's about the kids. It was about me 50 years ago. There's this unfortunate thing that seems to put the interests of those who love old buildings and historical sites against the needs of kids like I was. That means I have one more minute?
Yes, actually, you do have more time. You have another minute.
Am I out of time or is that more time? 1 minute, okay. So, where was I? It's his fault. The bottom line is the children are going to be using the land where rehabilitation was the destiny, it was the purpose. And as they have designed it, I can go there. I can stand at the North Gateway, look out toward where the infirmary used to be, which is where the new kids rehab center is going to be. I can sit on a bench with my 92-year-old mom and reminisce. Kids from the neighborhood can come, but most importantly, in in accordance with what the people thought about 125 years ago. It's about the kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hulse. We appreciate your testimony. Counselors, do you have any questions for Mr. Hulse? All right, thank you again. We appreciate you coming down. Is it Kylie Pine? Yes, welcome. Followed by Jean Pfeiffer and then Terry Baxter.
Good evening. My name is Kylie Pine, and I reside at 2170 Church Street Southeast. I'd like to speak this evening in opposition to the recommended action 4A in the agenda. I'd like to just raise a concern, and maybe you guys could ask this and answer it for me. I'm a little concerned that this is not a direct appeal from the applicant, but rather a revision by the council on an issue that has been delegated to the Historic Landmarks Commission. So I, just for curiosity's sake, would like a little bit more information about why that was done in that manner. I'd like to respectfully disagree with the staff interpretation of the code as presented last week as the commission ruled, the application in the meeting prior to this, the application did not meet all 4 criteria as presented by the city code. I'd specifically tonight like to address the issues of feasibility of the adaptive reuse proposed and the infeasibility of the adaptive reuse and the value of the building to the community. I do not believe that Howard Hall needs to be an old, empty building. That there are several fine examples of adaptive reuse of historic buildings for medical purposes in our community. And I'm not convinced by the evidence presented by the applicant that it would be economically infeasible. Any use of this building would provide an opportunity to gain revenue that it is not being gained right now. And specifically related to, does the value of the proposed use outweigh the value of preserving the historic resource? I think that it's unequivocal that there is a historic value to this building as based on national standards as put forth by the Department of the Interior. This is a historic valuable building. I'm concerned that the proposed value of the adaptive of the reuse of this property or the tearing down of the building hinges upon 2 issues that have not been met for me by the applicant. The issues of accessibility to the new property by the community that they say that it's going to be accessible to, and a question of permanence of the memorial that would last for a long time. In order for this to be of equal value to me, you need to be able to assure me on those 2 points. That this will be accessible to the public, and it will be a permanent structure or permanent feature on the landscape. I ask you to uphold the Landmarks Commission decision. I'd just like to add that the testimony of the past 5 meetings I've attended on this issue has really raised and illuminated the issue to me that we really do need an adaptive use playground or playgrounds in our community. But as suggested in tonight's presentation, we need a place for public play. A facility created by a private business will not provide that for our children. I challenge the council to take up this issue, but not at the expense of the historic fabric of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from counselors? All right, appreciate your testimony. Thanks for coming down. Jean Pfeiffer, followed by Terry Baxter.
Madam Mayor,
Welcome.
Councilman, Councilwoman, and Madam Manager. I'm Gene Pfeiffer. I live in Silverton, but I've worked in the Salem area for 50 years, and I treat Salem like it's part of my community. So what we have is a law that was passed, maybe with some of you counselors, but it was passed as part of your ordinances that the commission went by. There's 4 things for them to determine whether this should be demolished or not. In all due respect to property rights, the historic building existed on the property before the hospital purchased it. The trees existed on the property before the hospital purchased it. The ordinance existed before the hospital purchased it. The plans, just a couple of months after the hospital purchased the property, did not show that they were going to have this playground. It came along later in the process after they requested it. Now, it was presented to me as, can there be a solution to this? So I'm very direct in how I do it. So I went to Sidney Wagner with the Salem Hospital, and I said, you had a request for proposals, but we'd like to take a look at it. She thought about it. She said, okay. I think it came the next day that she affirmed that. So I went out, and within 2 days, I had 2 users by asking 2 parties. One of them was going to be an ethnic school, and the other one was a preschool. Both of them were very interested in the property. So here we have this RFP that goes out that is not desirable to investors. I mean, they look at it and say it's going to cost us $5.5 million to remediate this. It's obvious by looking at the reference documents that the hospital says we don't want to keep it, so any investor would know, well, I'm wasting my time spending any effort on this, so why should they want to do that? So I did a business plan. And I did a business plan to prove that it would work, not so much to prove the 4 items, but to prove that it really is a substance. So all it basically is that the investor leases the property from the hospital gets some money, the hospital doesn't have to put any dollars into the project, the user leases from the investor, and it goes on for longevity. And it's a matter of taking use of a historical building and taking advantage of it. You can't just have an empty building and say, wow, it's a historic building. I agree with the fellow that says, what do I want to look at it when it's deteriorated? I want it to be used. But we need to have respect for our heritage, and this is how we do it. So I would strongly recommend that rather than LUBA, which I've had 2 private parties come to me and say they are definitely going to appeal it if this passes through this committee tonight, but we take a path of conciliation and we work with each other. There's a win-win-win possibility. There's room on the property for the playground, there's room for Howard Hall, which is irreplaceable, and there's room for the trees that are there as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Are there questions for Mr. Pfeiffer? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Terry Baxter, is Mr. Baxter here? All right, I'm going to go to the sign-up sheet for this evening, and that starts with Robert Johnson, followed by John Dashney.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Robert Johnson. I live at 1845 A Street, 97301. Just to let you know where I'm coming from, I am currently president of the Willamette chapter of the American Council of the Blind. We spent over 20 years fighting to save the school for the blind. And due to the state's greed and total indifference to the blind community, we lost the battle. Now there is only one building left. It is a historical building. The hospital has said that if the building is raised, they will put in this garden. However, if the building is not raised, they are not going to put in a garden, meaning they don't really need it. Secondly, the garden is going to be financed by donations, to be built and funded and maintained by donations. I don't see any guarantee that these donations are going to be there year after year after year. If the donations are not there, the garden is not going to be there. It seems to me that the hospital is trying to sell the city a used car whose warranty runs out the minute it leaves the lot. There's no permanent guarantee that this garden is going to be maintained year after year after year. And we, the blind community, would sure like to have something in memory of that school. So I hope that the city is not as indifferent as the state has been towards the needs of the blind community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions from councilors? All right, we see none. Thank you so much. And John Dashney, followed by Susan Schwab.
Yes, good, please. Thank you very much. Excuse me. My name is John Dashney. I reside at 1932 Chemeketa Northeast, and I would like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about a man you probably never heard of, but who was actually quite famous, Mr. John Virginius Bemis. He is the architect who designed Howard Hall. And you're going to go, who? Well, that's what I thought a few weeks ago. I thought, okay, I'll Google him, and see what I can find out. Well, there are almost 3,000 references to him on the internet. He has an article about him on Wikipedia. He was one of Oregon's most notable architects, designed a great many of the buildings at Oregon State University, several major buildings in Portland, one in Salem. That was Howard Hall. Now, I've worked at Howard Hall for 5 years, and I know the layout of it quite well. There is potential there, but I can't help thinking about what happened when they were going to demolish the one house that Frank Lloyd Wright built. Now, he's an architect I'm sure you've heard of. Everybody screamed, went up the wall. The building was moved at great expense, put on the grounds of the Oregon Garden. All right, John Bemis, middle name Virginius of all things, was a near contemporary of Frank Lloyd Wright. Not quite maybe in the same category as Frank Lloyd Wright, but probably one of Oregon's premier architects. This is his one building in Salem that is still extant. Let's keep it. There are 8.8 acres on that campus. Surely we can find a place for an adaptive playground somewhere else. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions from counselors for Mr. Dashney? All right, we appreciate your testimony. Susan Schwab, followed by Jeff James.
Thank you. My name is Susan Schwab. I live at 4352 Trapper Drive Northeast here in Salem. I want to respectfully disagree with the staff's recommendation, and I want to speak in support of the Historical Landmarks Commission findings. I'm the treasurer for the Willamette chapter of the American Council of the Blind. My parents are former students of the Oregon School for the Blind. In the state's rush to dump the Oregon School for the Blind property, they made a big mistake not pulling out Howard Hall from the sale. This historical building not only has significance to the community of Salem, but emotional and social importance to the whole blind community of Oregon. I have had many opportunities over the years to attend functions with my parents at the School for the Blind. These were both social events as well as blind organization meetings. My parents would routinely point out different buildings on campus, the memorial fountain, the old growth trees, the superintendent's residence, etc. My mother was especially proud of Howard Hall as it was her girls' dormitory. It had a beautiful entryway, nice living room, and laundry facilities downstairs she often used. She talks regularly about the friends that attended this school with her, some still living and some that have passed on. I understand it might be hard for most community members to appreciate the emotional attachment Howard Hall has to the blind community of Oregon. But having lived with family members and their friends who were directly involved with this beautiful property, I've seen it firsthand. This historical building can still be a special place for the state's blind community. With National Historical Grant money, it can be rehabilitated to current code, redesigned inside, and continue to be a useful gathering place for the blind, as well as other hospital meeting needs. Please take some time to consider the important role this building plays for the blind of Oregon and uphold the Historical Landmarks Commission finding to deny Salem Hospital's request to remove the historical designation from Howard Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from counselors? All right, thanks for coming down. Jeff James, followed by Kathy Schneidley. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor
Welcome.
and Council. Jeff James, Ward 3, and my letter's in the record, in the voluminous record of hundreds of documents that I hope you've all read. I'm sure you have. First thing I'd say is encourage you to respect the Historic Landmarks Commission. You've got an exceptionally talented team there. And I'd say the same thing when you get a unanimous recommendation from a planning commission. As a past president of the planning commission, they work very hard, these commissions, and they're very serious about making their recommendations. They're very well thought out. They've received a lot of testimony, and you see a room full of people tonight and a huge record that indicates what the community feels about this, or many of the community. So my background in terms of the blind school was I was the contracted architect to the State Department of Education, not doing anything significant other than making the buildings accessible and to code and maintained. But I agree with John Dashney, who talked about the significance of the remaining building. You know, we have a sentimental attachment to, let's keep that building. So I understand there's a possibility of a couple of proposals for adaptive reuse of the building, and there's room on the site for both the playground and keeping Howard Hall as a gem of our history. So that's what I would recommend. The RFP, there was talk on the council floor, even at your last hearing, that the RFP was flawed or there were no responses. Well, I Googled it. I'm a local businessman and I've been a developer for 30-something years, and I didn't know about it, but I Googled it and I found the RFP. I think if there are potential proposals now, that the RFP should be reissued, because all it was a public notice in the Statesman Journal and a expensive publication called the Daily Journal of Commerce that companies like Salem Center, General Growth Corporation might read in Chicago, but local developers didn't know about it. So give them a chance to make a proposal, reaffirm the unanimous recommendation of the Historic Landmarks Commission, and let's save Howard Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have some questions for you, Mr. James. First of all, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your testimony, Mr. James. Talking about people that want to do an RFP today, do you know of those folks? We had testimony earlier also about a couple of folks out there that wanted to enter into an RFP or fill one out, or
I think these sort of things have to go through the non-profit boards, and they all have organizations that have to put their proposals together. So I'd say give them a chance to, now they know about it, to if it's going to be a school of some kind, that would be a good use and would fit that configuration of building. Give them a chance to respond to an RFP. So reissue it. I'm talking about Salem Health. Should reissue the RFP, not just.
I have two more.
Yes, go ahead.
Did I understand your question?
Yeah, pretty much. There's really nothing in writing. I guess the next question would be: has anyone talked to the hospital about any of these opportunities before they wanted to fill out the paperwork and go through the process?
I have not been directly involved, but I'm just hearing that there are proposals that are imminent or about to be presented to Salem Health, and we'll learn more about that in the next few weeks. But I would say hold off any threat of demolition permits certainly until you know that this building can be saved and adapted for educational use or whatever.
Thank you.
Is that it? All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Oh, sorry. Councillor Benars.
Thank you, Mr. James. I had a quick question. You've been in architecture for a long time. You've done some buildings tonight, maybe not yourself.
Yeah.
How often in the private sector have you gone out for an RFP? How often does the private sector go out for an RFP when they have a project? The fact of the matter is that RFPs are used in public sector, not in the private sector. As far as I know, that's the only time an RFP goes out. So if a private sector says, I don't want to do something, or they have their own plan, they can send it out to a clearinghouse. They can send it out to the contractors board if they've got some plan already on the docket. But there is no requirement for an RFP in the public sector, or private sector.
Absolutely, that's right. You're correct.
Thank you.
And RFPs are used by the public sector, and some developers are interested in public work and some stay with private work. But in this case, I think it was so, not semi-secret, but people like myself, active in neighborhoods, Chamber of Commerce, all these things, we didn't hear about it.
But you make it sound as if there's a window that has been left open, that they didn't do their due diligence in reference to an RFP. And the fact of the matter is an RFP is not required in the private sector. It is required in the public sector when you've got a due process that you've got to go through. They just have to make a decision on the building. So to hold that up as a carrot and say they didn't follow their RFP is a false thing. That's what I'm saying. It's not a goal that they had to accomplish.
I agree. I'm just saying that if you are going to issue an RFP, then
but it makes it sound like to people out there that they didn't follow the rules, they didn't do what they were supposed to do because they didn't go through the RFP process. So I think it's false to continue down that road. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Thank you very much. Kathy Schnedley, followed by Linda Peterson.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Kathy Schnebly. I live at 19626 Aspen Court, Aurora, 97002, and I have worked in Salem for 30 years as a recreation therapist for children that have special needs. I wanted to say that if all the things have been said and done and all their I's have been dotted and T's been crossed, and Howard Hall is going to go away, I think that the commemorative garden and the therapeutic playground, this is not just a playground, this is a therapeutically designed playground, which is very different from what we have at the park across the street. I cannot think of a more fitting use for the land that serves special needs children for the years than to continue to use the land for children who have special needs. I run the summer day camp called Camp Gandu for 8 years at the blind school campus when the Children's Therapy Center was housed in that building. So I'm very familiar with the grounds, and I can say that the laughter and play of children would be a wonderful way to commemorate the blind school and all the children that went there before. From a professional point of view, I can tell you that the Crooked House Playground is not adequate for most children that have pretty moderate to severe special needs because of the accessibility, because of the content of the materials that are up there, and also the distance from the new proposed therapy center that would be on the hospital grounds. Many children with disabilities simply do not have the physical stamina for such a walk. I mean, so we're not just talking about let's go play. Let's talk about let's use play as a therapy tool and help our children that have special needs to grow and develop the way they need to be to grow. Play by itself is a therapeutic tool, and the playground is part of that therapy. I also know, having worked at Easter Seals for several years, that the therapists in occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy used our therapeutic playground there at the Easter Seals Center, which is now closed, so we're really minus a lot of services in our community right now. So I would hope that in addition to the talk that's been going on with the city, please continue your work to develop more playgrounds in town for the children. But if it comes to it, I cannot think of a better way of honoring the blind students than having a therapeutic playground open to the community as well as to continued therapy in that location.
Is that the end of your testimony? Thank you.
My light was almost ready to go off.
Oh, you can.
I want to hurry and get done before that light went off. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions from counselors? All right. We appreciate your testimony. Thank you so much. All right. Brian Hines. I'm sorry. Did I miss someone?
Yeah, Linda Peterson.
Thank you. Yes. Linda Peterson?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
other
I'm sorry, I'm sort of working off of two lists here.
Okay.
Welcome.
My name is Linda Peterson, and I live at 290 Friendship Avenue. And I came down here this evening more concerned on how this property would be developed than the actual building, that historic building. And I've certainly got a good education on that and see the value of that. The fact is, the 8.5 acres is a gem. There's many old growth trees on that of all species. I'm particularly want to defend the white oak because we have lost so many of those. It's a slow-growing species, and developing in land and then putting in lawns has destroyed a lot of them. So whatever the city decides on this, what I'm more interested in is that land be developed responsibly, and that means leaving as many trees as possible. And I would like to see any approval of have attachments that the developer, whatever goes on there, whether it's an adaptive playground, that should consider the property and how valuable it is to community. It's a beautiful area I would like to see preserved as much as possible. As far as the adaptive playground, I am very sympathetic to people. I think it's important for that, but I don't think it needs to be in that particular location. And so I would hope that the city considers all these things that I brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from counselors? All right, thank you so much. Brian Hines, followed by Sasha Jervis.
Yes, Brian Hines, 10371 Lake Drive, Southeast Salem. I'm going to tell two related stories. The tale of how the 5 large, beautiful, healthy U.S. Bank trees in downtown Salem were cut down in 2013 for no good reason, and the story of how this council may vote to tear down Howard Hall, also for no good reason. Now, those watching this hearing may not be aware of my tell-all outrage report about the U.S. Bank tree killing debacle. You can read it by going to usbankkillstrees.com or do a Google search. In this report, I discuss how this shameful episode is a window into how the folks currently running City Hall go about doing the public's business. It isn't a pretty picture. My hindsight blog, Salem Weekly, CCTV, and KMUZ Community Radio have reported on what I found through public records requests. The Statesman Journal hasn't, even though an interested reporter wrote a story almost 3 months ago. Higher-ups at the paper have been sitting on the story, which remains unpublished. But the story of no story, that's another story. There are disturbing parallels between a horribly outrageous decision to cut down the U.S. Bank trees and how the city may be on the verge of an equally outrageous decision to overturn the Historic Landmarks Commission ruling that saves Howard Hall. In each case, a big-moneyed, powerful corporation wanted to do away with a cherished bit of Salem. U.S. Bank was desperate to cut down 5 gorgeous trees in the historic district. Salem Hospital is eager to take a wrecking ball to historic Howard Hall. In each case, ordinary citizens were strongly opposed to what the large corporations wanted. Not a single person other than U.S. Bank staff thought the 5 Japanese Zelkovas should be removed. And it sure seems that many more people are in favor of saving Howard Hall than of demolishing it. In each case, a city citizen committee strongly recommended that the Salem landmark be preserved. The Shade Tree Advisory Committee looked at all the facts and said, prune the trees, don't cut them down. The Historic Landmarks Commission made findings of fact and conclusions of law that led to a decision. Howard Hall should be saved and repurposed. In each case, political machinations came into play. Public Works Director Peter Fernandez was all set to order that the trees be pruned, not cut down, until he was contacted by the bank president, Ryan Albritton, who reminded him of a backroom deal they'd made years before to have the trees removed, before an application to do this was even submitted by the bank as required by law. With Howard Hall, the City Council didn't wait for Salem Hospital to file an appeal. The council decided to review the Historic Landmarks Commission decision all on its own, an unseemly action for a supposedly neutral quasi-judicial body. Cynicism about public officials elected and appointed is high. I keep hearing the fix is in, the City Council is going to do whatever Salem Hospital wants. Well, counselors, remember that your job isn't to please a large corporation, it's to honor facts and the law. This is what members of the Historic Landmarks Commission did. I urge you to uphold their decision to save Howard Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Hines? All right, thank you very much. Ellen Stevens, followed by Carlene Benson. Oh, Sasha Jervis, thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Hi, I'm Sasha Gervais. I reside at 1145 Rock Creek Drive, South Salem. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and meeting attendees. I'm here tonight to strongly support the need for an adaptive playground in Salem. I'm a pediatric physical therapist who has a therapy business here in town and has worked as a therapist around this area for over 12 years. This community desperately needs more outdoor opportunities for families to use a space like the proposed suggest to allow all children of varied ability levels to successfully engage in play with other peers of typical development. Outdoor play has many benefits for every child, but it's especially important for children with disabilities when given the chance to feel successful in playing outdoors alongside their neighborhood peers to socialize and communicate. An adaptive playground can be a hub of community networking for the families who rarely get to meet those other families who have the same challenges that they face every day. From a perspective of a therapist who treats children in their natural environment, this proposed playground would allow me to help parents find ways to allow their child to be involved with outdoor play in a safe and effective way to facilitate progress with their development. For those who think disability does not affect many families here in our community, a 2005 U.S. Census demonstrated that in every 2 of 7 families, 1 or more family member deals with a disability. The property on which this adaptive playground is proposed to exist should be used to benefit the disabled population due to the legacy of what the Oregon School for the Blind did for those with disability for over a century. It is a very fitting and practical way to use a small portion of that land to give back to the community in promoting equal access to outdoor play for children with disabilities. In summary, there are so many important reasons why this adaptive playground would benefit all community members, but I believe supporting a place where children of all level of abilities can meet, play, grow, socialize, and feel a part of that community is reason enough. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Stevens? Excuse me.
Gervais. Miss Gervais.
I am so sorry, Ms. Gervais. I do apologize. No questions? All right. Ellen Stevens, followed by Carlene Benson.
Madam Mayor and City Council, my name is Ellen Stevens. I reside in Ward 2. Tonight, I speak to you on behalf of a group of 17 individuals, all of whom do not support demolition of Howard Hall. To save time this evening, we summarize our points. On June 11th, several of us attended the presentation at Pringle Community Hall by OSU archivist Larry Landis on the work of John Bennis, the architect of Howard Hall. A new awareness of his work is rising. 48 of his designated structures are on the National Register of Historic Places. 18 of these are in Portland, 24 are on the OSU campus in Corvallis. Howard Hall, eligible for the National Register, is Bennis's only structure in Salem. And we believe it deserves to join that elite category. We support a play area, but not on the footprint of this historic building or at this exposed location. A few years ago, I personally witnessed an accident near the intersection of Mission and Church Streets. As a truck moved west along Mission Street, its trailer became loose. It traversed the sidewalk and came to a stop on the grassy area in front of Howard Hall. Luckily, I was walking on the Bush Park side of Mission Street. This main arterial sees 16 to 17,000 day trips. It is our understanding that the 8 historic landmark commissioners are appointed by, interviewed by, and approved by the mayor and city councilors. You approve these people as experts in the field, in the know, and you ask them to make quasi-judicial decisions on behalf of city council. We hope you will agree with their decision in this case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from councilors? All right, thank you very much.
I believe, Ms. Benson, I believe you testified on the 14th. Unless you're testifying to new evidence that's been submitted in the record since the 14th, you're not allowed to testify again.
Does that mean a new opinion?
No, you can't express your same opinions again. So if you,
No, this is something I haven't said before.
I understand that. However, if the only thing you can testify to is new evidence that's been submitted to the record, you've already had your allotted time, so
I don't
you
know
don't
what
get
that
additional
means.
time to express additional opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Was there anyone else here this evening who has not testified before who was not able to get their name on this list? I see some hands. All right. What I'd like you to do is just form a line, and you can decide among yourselves who's first, second, and third. Please introduce yourself and indicate your ward or your address, please.
Hi,
Welcome.
Madam Mayor, council members, excuse me. My name is Kirk Leonard, and I live in Ward 2. And I just want to point out something that seems fairly clear to me, but there's been a bifurcation happening in the testimony. And that is, there's nothing that says can't do both an adaptive playground and reuse of the building. I wonder if Salem Hospital has looked at possibly an integrated adaptive reuse and rehabilitation facility, you know, on the site. It seems entirely possible to do both. And I really think, after hearing as much as I've heard about the process that they went through to try and identify reuse and the history of their apparently fairly clear desire to get rid of the building, that the council should push back a little bit on Salem Hospital and say, hey, come on, there's something that can be done with this historic structure, surely. That's all I have to say. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from councilors? All right, thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Two things just really quick. One is...
Oh, you need to give your name and address,
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is A.P. Walther. I'm in Ward 1. I wanted to talk about the playground, just say that it seems to be a false choice to whether you would have a historic building or the needed playground. I don't think that anyone would disagree with the arguments made of the need for that type of playground. There's lots of options for it, lots of places it could go, and I just think that's a false choice, so we shouldn't be saying we get one or the other. The other point is about history. I want to talk about that quickly. One of the person making testimony mentioned all the different historic buildings that we've saved, and that it's important to the community. And I can't list all the historic properties that we haven't saved. One, because they're not there, so I'm not as aware of them. But there are a lot of them. If you look through the books, we've had some beautiful places that past council or past powers that be decided not to preserve and allowed to disappear. And we'll never know what the impact that they could have had. But the importance of preserving our history as a community, the importance of the identity that gives us can't be understated. And so to have an opportunity to save something that obviously a lot of people think is important, is historically significant, to not save it would be a missed opportunity. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony as well. And are there any questions from councilors? All right, thank you. I saw another hand. Uh-huh. And I think we have a lady over here. Would you like to come to the podium and introduce yourself? And your address, too,
Yes,
please.
sure. Hi, my name's Wendy Harney. I've done this once before, so I knew the address part. Kind of weird at first, but 2395 East Nob Hill, Salem. Lifetime Salem resident, born at Salem Hospital, went through Salem Public Schools, went to McMinnville for college, but came back, and now I'm back. And I don't know how much to say again. I don't know if you guys get to see the first meeting, so I don't know how much to say, but my educational journey, what I said last time, started, amazingly, I was at Howard Hall. That's where I was at. And excuse me if I'm nervous. I wear my heart on my sleeve, too, and I'll just try to get the facts out. But in the 80s, there was a co-op, a preschool, that was housed in Howard Hall while the blind school still was there. And anyways, that was where my educational journey started out. My heart is with Howard Hall. There's really, I realize, you can't hear me, huh? That there's really no new evidence. That was something that we just talked about. I don't know what the new evidence has the hospitals brought that shows that the criteria has been met, because we already decided the criteria, not 3 out of the 4 weren't met, and it was a long meeting, and I listened really closely to everything, and well, sure enough, the criteria wasn't met. So I'm just curious. And then something I just heard, that the hospital didn't even get a chance to appeal the decision before the city council wanted to review it. I'm confused. And as a lifelong Salem resident, I'd like to understand the city government more, and I apologize, this has really got me motivated to come out more, and hopefully I can make it to more meetings, but I just don't understand why we're readdressing this without any new evidence. The hospital didn't ask for a formal appeal. So I'm reading from my notes here when I say a couple more things. The Willamette University, I've got a friend whose husband is a professor there, and they're interested in Howard Hall. They're really interested. They say that all the athletic complex is right across the street, and they would love to use that building. And I don't know, they didn't have enough money back in 2010. The hospital has lots and lots of money to spend on things like this. So they got Willamette has more of a heart for history, and of course an empty building has no value, but it takes people, it takes a community, it takes us to give it value. And so my friend whose husband's at Willamette, they're from Portland, and I told her I'm from Salem, and it's kind of like, oh God, it's so embarrassing. People aren't really that, even people, keep Portland weird. They think I'm weird because I'm from Salem, and maybe I am weird, but I just love Salem. I love that it was a tree city growing up. I have this feeling of community. You don't have to see things to have a feeling of community. You feel it. It's something that you feel. And I could be back in Howard Hall, and I would just know the feeling would come back to me, being 3 years old again and being in awe of these people who, despite their disabilities, I work for Social Security disability now. Maybe it's just stuck with me all these years, but
I'm
that
sorry.
really needs to stay.
I'm sorry. Your time is up.
And please respect the
Thank you.
HLC's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from counselors? All right. Thank you very much. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. I didn't anticipate speaking tonight, so I'm going to ad-lib it a little bit.
So I need your name and address.
Yes, ma'am. For the record, my name is John Christensen, and I live in Ward 2 and have worked on projects like the mural on the Elsinore in Ward 1. I wanted you to know that. I wanted to speak to a couple small things or large things, depending on how you look at it. Councilor Bennett said the other day, and I listened to the hearing, and I thought he was right on target. He said, in my ward, the folks bought the property. And I wanted to clarify for Councilor Bennett that this property has never been offered for sale. And so that option for Howard Hall as being parceled off from the property and sold for rehab or reuse has never been presented, even though you said in our neighborhood the folks got together and bought the historical property. And I wanted to clarify that. The second thing is that in the record you'll find, it's obscure, but it might be there, that in 2009 an architectural firm in Portland, Fletcher something something, suggested that Howard Hall, possibly the 1950 addition, be taken off. And if you look at the footprint, if you were to do that, part of the footprint could be used for an adaptive playground, and part of the footprint could retain the 1922 John Virginis Bennis building. So there are options that are available that haven't been looked at. Another way to say what I'm saying is you could approve a partial demolition, compromise if you want to call it that. A partial demolition would save the 1922 part of the structure and removes the 1950 part of the structure which faces Church Street and still retain the historical integrity of the site and give some footprint for an adaptive use playground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Are
Thank
there
you.
questions from any counselors?
Ma'am, can I also thank
Yes,
the council for its work?
Certainly.
Okay, and the Landmarks Commission and the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilors, neighbors. My name is Virginia Green. I live at 1601 Water Street in Salem. I agree with all the people that say this is not either or. There are good points on both sides. I myself have a son who was born profoundly deaf, so I understand about the needs of disadvantaged children. I would like to tell you that this reminds me very much of a series of city council meetings that I attended some years ago. The subject was a historic property that had been very much neglected. I was new in town and I saw it and I asked what was going to happen to this Gothic thing. I joined a group working towards saving that property and that structure. The opposition was strong. The main points were the enormous cost and whether it would ever be useful in a new role. Even the owners did not want it. Finally, the matter reached the council, as the fate of Howard Hall has. The prospects for saving that structure were dim. Debate was long. The question was called. The vote began. A yes would have been for renovation. Immediately and without hesitation, there were 2 no votes. Then there was a yes vote. Another 2 votes. I was wringing the arm of the person who was sitting next to me. Finally, it was 3-3. It was the 7th and final member of the council present that evening whose turn it was to vote. He sat back and said he had determined not to make any decision till he heard all of the discussion that night. I thank the other 3 councilors who voted yes, but particularly the final critical vote. If you have enjoyed the Union Street pedestrian bridge in the last few years, you can thank Brad Mankey, who cast the deciding vote that night, and save the 4 times by now award-winning Union Street Bridge. Thank you again, Brad. I hope there's a majority of people tonight who feel that both motives can be accomplished, that disabled children, like many of us have, can be accommodated, but that we do not destroy a very historic building that the Landmarks Commission asked to be saved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Green. Are there questions from councilors? All right, appreciate your testimony. All right, that concludes the public testimony, and I believe now we have time for questions of staff. I'm waiting to see which staff is actually going to be. All right, Kimberly Fitzgerald, welcome. Thank you for being here this evening. All right, we have questions for staff, and I saw a couple of counselors with hands up. Counselor Bennett and then Counselor Nanke.
Thank you. I would like to understand the conditions that have been attached by staff. How tight is the condition on the perpetual nature of this park? How strong is that?
It acts as a development standard, should it be approved by council. So it's enforceable just the way any section of our code is enforceable.
Well,
does that make sense?
If I can follow up on that, like Kimberly stated, it becomes a development standard for the property. It's on the property until it's not, which means to say that there is an opportunity for the property owner to come back in and modify the approval. They would have to come back to the city council. Since the city council is issuing that decision, if you were to approve it with that condition, they could apply again, and the council would have to make that determination whether they'd modify the condition or not. So it's there in perpetuity until it's changed by the council.
Well, that's an interesting definition of perpetuity, but that's. I want to make sure I understand it, because I want to ask the hospital representative during their response about this, so I understand what their commitment to this park is. Because as I hear it, despite what seemed like, and I assume there were all kinds of discussions prior to it ever getting to us, there were discussions like we heard, keep one, keep both, all of that. Was that the case? Did all of this kind of discussion we've heard occur at the Landmark Commission?
Well, the first time I was at Landmarks was in 2011, and at that time, the Landmarks Commission heard testimony similar to what you're hearing now about potential folks out there who might be able to reuse the building. And at that time, the Landmarks Commission gave direction to the hospital to go out and see if that was the case. And as was mentioned earlier, they ended up withdrawing their application. And then I had multiple meetings with them to discuss alternative uses, and yes.
To your knowledge, did anyone ever step forward and say, I'm ready to go, or even I'd like to talk to you further, or I'd like to pursue grants at the...
No.
No. Okay, and you heard the same kind of suggestion during
Correct.
the... So there's always someone in the wings. Is that kind of what we're hearing?
And actually, that's not uncommon for a building like this, especially if people are in love with it and are passionate about it. I don't think there's any question that this building has merit. The challenge is in its use and in the cost of adaptively reusing it and finding that nice, perfect match. During the same time period, we had the same challenges with our baggage depot over with ODOT, and thankfully, there was a match that was found with Greyhound and ODOT, and there was a good partnership there. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case with this building.
But it's been explored?
Yes.
Okay. For adaptive reuse, which means you could essentially completely hollow the building and reuse it as something else completely.
That was one of the submittal requirements, that they had to at least explore fully 2 different options, and that's in your,
okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Was it Councilor Nanke?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you address the reason this is at council today? There's been some confusion as to how it got here, whether or not an appeal process should have taken place first.
So my understanding, the application first went to Landmarks Commission, and as you're aware, the Landmarks Commission rendered their decision, and it was during the appeal period. Council does have the option to call up any reviews, demolition reviews and new construction reviews by Landmarks Commission, and I believe that was the case here. And you have the right to do that.
Thanks. And just, council has the ability to call up a lot of stuff, and we do it a lot. And sometimes we do it because just a councilor and his neighborhood association wants something to be pulled up as well, but it's not an uncommon practice. So just to throw that out on the record as well.
Councilor Benars?
I'm not exactly sure who can address this issue. It has to do with the historic significance of the building, of the structure, and the process that they went through to designate it a historic structure. It was my understanding at some point that the owners of the property, be it the state of Oregon, said that they did not want it to be listed as a historic structure. Can you address this issue?
Correct, yes. So this property was designated in 1990 by the City Council at that time as part of the what we call the Goal 5 inventory. And at that time, owner consent to designate historic properties was not required. And in 1995, I'm going to cite code, I'm sorry, ORS 358653 was adopted by the state legislature, and that's what's known as the owner consent law. So currently, owner consent by private property owners is required for designation. I don't want to get too into case law here, but there has been some case law where it's been determined that if a current owner can demonstrate, find evidence that the property owner at the time did object to that listing in writing, then they have the right under both state law and our local code to request that that designation be removed.
Is there something in writing at this time?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Between the time it was seen at Landmarks in 2011.
So Landmarks took this information in, but it failed to, or it chose to ignore that information.
Well, it was not part of their decision.
But it might be part of ours.
To clarify that, Councilor Bednarz, whether or not they have the authority to delist it or not is not part of the criteria of this decision. So it's unfair to say that they ignored that. It just was not relevant.
Thank you. That helps.
Are there other questions? Councilor Dickey and then Councilor Rogers.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious. So the suggested, under the suggested conditions, it lists that the applicant shall demonstrate to staff that funding has been secured for construction and long-term maintenance of the adaptive playground. Can you define long-term?
Well, one of the concerns that was brought up in testimony at the Landmarks Commission and also by the commissioners themselves was concern about maintenance and the longevity to ensure permanence. So there was discussion about the lifetime of the play equipment. And my understanding is that the average lifespan of this new equipment that they are proposing is approximately 40 years, but they would be better able to answer that. So at a minimum, to ensure that at that mark there is funding to maintain the play equipment at least for that period of time and a plan to replace it should it fail before that time.
Thank you.
Councilor Rogers?
Thank you, Mary. I'm not sure who the question goes to, but this process, if no matter how we vote tonight, whichever prevailing side, what's the opposite of prevailing? The losing side. Can they appeal to LUBA in this situation?
Correct. Whatever decisions issued tonight would be appealable to the Land Use Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Other questions by Councilor? Councilor Benars?
I don't know if you were present at any of the neighborhood associations. There were 6 criteria, if memory serves me, somewhere along the way that Howard, that the neighborhood association SCAN had desired to have fulfilled. And do you remember those 6 criteria at all?
You know, I was at some of those, but no, I don't remember the full 6 of points of interest that they had. I was only focused on the one relating to Howard Hall.
The preservation of Howard Hall.
Correct.
From my understanding, 5 of the 6
they were
satisfied.
happy that they were satisfied, and it was only the Howard Hall, the preservation of Howard Hall, that they had the remaining concern.
The last thing that I really haven't heard much here, and I'm not the expert, and that comes from that historical side, is, so what's historical about the building? The architect? the arches?
Well, I can speak to the reason it was designated as a local landmark for the city of Salem. And it was, while the architect is significant, that's not the reason. It was not designated for its architectural significance. It was designated for what we call cultural significance, so its association with the work of the School for the Blind.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there further questions of staff? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we now have time for rebuttal. And I understand that Keith Bauer is here this evening. Welcome, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. And members of the council, my name is Keith Bauer, 570 Liberty Street Southeast, Salem 97301. Norm Gruber was with us at the last hearing as the CEO of the hospital, and he regrets he can't be here tonight. He was at a family wedding and is still on a plane back from the East Coast tonight. Cheryl Nestor Wolf was the Chief Operating Officer of the hospital, is with us this evening in his place. On behalf of Salem Hospital, we respect the decision that was made by the HLC. However, this is a discretionary review before the council, and each of you are allowed to make your own decision based on the facts and applicable criteria. Folks have already spoken to the criteria, and I'll just kind of briefly mention them under the Salem Revised Code, and that's that first, the value to the community of the proposed use of the property outweighs the value of retaining the designated historic resource on the present site. Second, the designated historic resource is not capable of generating a reasonable economic return, and the demolition is economically necessary. C, the owner has made a good faith effort to sell or relocate the designated resource. The HLC found in favor of Salem Hospital on that criteria, and so we're really addressing 3 of the 4. And the 4th one is no prudent and feasible alternative exists to rehabilitate and reuse the designated resource in its present location. Let's address the first one. The value to the community and the proposed use of the property by Salem Hospital really does embody the hospital's commitment to the furthering the legacy of the Oregon School for the Blind. It was just mentioned by staff. The criteria for this building was not the architectural significance that many folks have spoken to. It was the historical significance to the connection to the blind school. And through the construction of the commemorative garden and also the therapeutic playground, an additional track that will go along with this property and the proposal, it will commemorate the blind school and serving children with disabilities, as you've heard from a number of the members of the disabled community here tonight. And one of the speakers at the previous hearing suggested that the actual area is smaller than which is set forth in Salem Hospital's proposal. I put to you that's incorrect. He was mistaken because it did not take into consideration the total area being committed to this project. I also want to reiterate again, and which has come up a couple times this evening, that Salem Hospital previously confirmed to staff, and again specifically in correspondence from Norm Gruber, CEO of Salem Hospital, to staff on July 25th, that the hospital does, without question, accept all the conditions that have been placed by staff on this project. In addition, the HLC raised a concern over future maintenance of the project, and that's also come up. And we've subsequently confirmed in writing after the HLC hearing, but to this council, that the landscape maintenance plan and the full maintenance proposals that we have for all of our other buildings at Salem Hospital will be followed with respect to this project. And there's questions about funding that came up. And with respect to funding, we can't demolish that building until we establish that all funding is in place and the hospital has established that it will, in fact, fund this project. There's no question about that in terms of having to raise funds or tear the building down and raise funds later. The hospital is committed to fund this project. This is a project that's located immediately adjacent to a new state-of-the-art outpatient rehab facility. Its contiguous nature is very important because it allows those using the playground that are also going to be serviced by this new facility. It also will benefit the community as a whole because, as has been mentioned by many, they'll all be able to come. It's open to the public. And we should not forget that the designation of Howard Hall was rooted in what's, quote, historic association with an institution. But the Oregon School for the Blind is no longer serving children with special needs. Therefore, the question before the council is whether the memory of the school is better served by a single dormitory building that no longer serves the blind community, or by the proposal that's been advanced by the hospital to remove the building and reactivate this corner of the property through the development of the commemorative garden and therapeutic playground. You know, there's been comments made about the fact that the hospital did some tricky legal issue by pulling this back after the first HLC hearing. I was there. I'll put to you the reason, and I've sat with the board of the hospital. There are 15 members of this community that serve without compensation. This is not some big corporation that pays dividends to stockholders. This is your community hospital, and it's governed by a group of 15 individuals without compensation whatsoever. But you know, the hospital and the board listened to what was said at the first hearing, and that was, what's your plan, hospital? What are you going to do here? And the board staff asked, you know what, we owe it to the community to tell the community what we're going to do with this piece of property. And that's what we came back the second time and did. We explained, in fact, then took the time to do a master plan for all the property and place the new facility where it's going to be placed. There have been comments about trees. Well, with respect to the design, and this is not part of this project in terms of the playground, but the design of the new rehab center has been actually curved and placed in a way that it will honor the largest white oak tree on the property and maintain that tree. Again, looking at, we've listened to our neighbors, we've listened to our friends, and said, have had concerns. And the suggestion that the RFP was in some way done in secret, and Mr. James I've known for over 35 years. In fact, we developed a piece of property together a number of years ago, and I respect him, but I would suggest that we didn't do it in secret. We didn't do it by public notice. This is the ad that appeared in the Statesman Journal, a color ad, and I'll place this with the recorder tonight, in the record, inviting proposals to be brought forth. And in fact, there were also public notices in the Portland and Seattle online and print trade journals. It was placed on the Salem Hospital website. A copy was provided to the South Central Association of Neighbors Land Use Committee. Some of those who objected have suggested that the rental rates and lease terms were unreasonable. They clearly did not read the RFP because it did not establish these terms. It provided that the rates and terms for the lease are subject to negotiation. It is significant that not a single person or entity has ever come forward with a response to the RFP or since the RFP, even through tonight. We've heard about maybe coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but we have never seen a single proposal that's been presented. So in summary, on behalf of the Salem Hospital Board, and really on a personal note, I've been a member of the SCAN neighborhood for over 50 years, before SCAN was actually formed. I've been involved with the hospital for over 40 years, and proud to say that, because it serves this community. And on behalf of the board, we ask that you please reverse the HLC and grant the demolition permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from councilors? Councilor Tesler.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bauer, thanks for coming down tonight. I appreciate
Thank you
that.
for your time.
I just want to ask you a couple questions about some things that were brought up tonight, because I think it's really good to get factual information out. Okay,
be
so
helpful.
please do not view this as an attack or any of that other thing.
I'm no concern.
Thank you.
And also, Leilani Slama is our community relations director. I'd like her to come up and join me, because she also can help me probably field some of the questions.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
My first question with the mayor's forbearance is, did you hear from Willamette University at any time in this process about this building or their plans for this building?
We did, in fact.
Yeah, we've spoken with Jim Bauer on a number of occasions. And I believe that at some point in the competitive bid process, Willamette was involved.
And nothing came of that, or?
No, there were no proposals submitted on behalf of Willamette University for redevelopment.
Okay. And have you considered integrated use of the site, maybe the facade, using the facade of the building, or the partial demo of the 1922 structure? Did you look at that at all, or think
We've
about
looked
that?
at a number of options in reusing the building, and Alden Kasowitz, our project architect, can address this better, but as I understand it, there's some significant problems that come with going vertical, reusing brick in a vertical process. So the proposal that's been submitted to the council does have resurfacing using the brick from Howard Hall. However, just taking a portion, like using one of the arcs, really wasn't going to be a safe and feasible option for us.
Okay. And then my last question, this may be for the person who's, I guess, standing in for Norm Gruber, but there have just been a lot of ideas expressed about the long-term operations and maintenance of the playground and who will take care of it. and those types of things. And there's also some conditions that are spelled out as part of this approval. And I hear that you are ready and willing to undertake these conditions and that you have thought about long-term operations and maintenance of this property.
As Mr. Bauer stated, we agree to all of the conditions that have been presented by city staff. And I think it's important to remind council that in addition to this being an adaptive playground, it's a hospital facility. It will be used for patients. We will maintain it just as if we would any other hospital facility. So it would be unadvisable for us to build it and then not maintain it.
And my last question to you is, there were 2 previous playgrounds that were removed, and there was a parking lot that was put there, and it was my understanding / observation that these were pretty primitive playgrounds and really not what we're talking about when we talk about a true playground for people with disabilities. Could you elucidate more on that?
Let me first address the Bush Elementary Playground. When the decision was made to expand the hospital, and there was concern expressed by neighbors about the Bush Elementary being there, an agreement was struck with Salem Kaiser School District to purchase Bush Elementary and also use those funds to build the new school. Obviously, we couldn't leave a playground in a location where they were removing an elementary school because it would be an unsafe location. Obviously, Bush School is in a much better location, has a much better building, and I was working for the school district at the time, and I can tell you that they were thrilled with that option. In regards to the playground that existed at the Oregon School for the Blind, those the playground structures which were still usable were taken down and given to Oregon School for the Deaf. Salem Hospital did not tear any of those down. I think you're right. I've seen some of the pictures. It was a metal swing set. That was pretty much the extent of the playground.
I can add just a quick one to that. It was a classic merry-go-round and swing set that you've ordered Fairmount Park in my neighborhood to take out, and the neighbors have rebuilt the structures there. And so it would not be acceptable in today's world as a therapeutic playground.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now. Appreciate your patience.
All right, Councilor Benars, you have questions?
Thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the accessibility to the new park. So more accessible. The issue is to individuals who are not using the care facility, the treatment facility on site. How accessible will it be to the public for those that don't have the other alternatives to getting their wheelchairs or other ways to get into a playground?
Well, there will be actually 2 entrances, one from the corner of Church and Mission and one from within the parking lot for the rehab facility, and so the public is welcome to access it from either of those. We aren't going to have designated spaces for the public, but just as you or I could go down and park at Salem Hospital when they go to the Salem Art Fair, which I'm sure some of you in the room did this weekend, those parking spots will be available.
So the other side of that will there be any signs up that say, please respect those with needs, leave this space for those in needs?
Actually, our therapists are really looking forward to having members of the public there using the playground while they're working with patients, because part of the therapy process is for children and other adults to learn how to interact with their fellow citizens. So it won't be, oh, sorry, it's therapy hours, you need to leave now. No, we want the public to be there. It will be accessible to the public all the time.
Thank you very much.
All right, are there other questions from councilors? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes, certainly. All right, I'll now close the public hearing, and we'll open deliberation. And do we have a motion from, is it Councilor Tessler? All right.
I do, thank you. My motion is I move to reverse the decision of the Historic Landmarks Commission and approve the application with the 2 conditions as set forth in the staff report dated July 14th, 2014, with the following clarification to condition 2. Replace the reference to HLC with City Council.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Tessler and seconded by Councilor Clem to reverse the decision of the Historic Landmarks Commission. Councillor Tessler, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would, thank you very much. You know, this has been a tough decision, and for people that think that, you know, we just collude, you know, I have put a lot of personal thought into this issue. This is not an easy issue. It's a tough issue. I've known about this issue for all 8 years of my term. I inherited this issue when I started, and I still have it now. So, you know, and I've heard from a lot of my constituency over the past, you know, month or so, and I've heard from people on both sides of the issue, and I really have to say that the input has been equally balanced, which makes it an even harder decision because you do hear from both sides, and it is just about equally balanced. I enjoy historical buildings, and they're often joyful repurposing. Truly, tonight I'm just going to address the concerns about the Howard Hall, as the parking and the oak trees are a separate issue, and those will be coming to us in the weeks ahead, and we will address that issue then. I wish to really thank the Historical Landmarks Commission for their no doubt thorough and timely review of the case before us. I mean no disrespect to them by my vote tonight, and I will personally go to the HLC after the tonight, and I will explain why I voted the way I have, and I will thank them in person. However, we must consider that council has a much broader decision spectrum than what the HLC does. The HLC is charged with a very narrow decision spectrum. They are given a set of very strict criteria, and they must make decisions within those criteria. Council has a much broader spectrum, and we must consider many things that are outside the realm and the reach of our various commissions. We needed to add that council perspective tonight. I very rarely overturn commission decisions. You can look at my voting record and look at that for yourself. I would like to commend staff for their high degree of professionalism and their thorough and scholarly review of this case, especially by Ms. Kimberly Fitzgerald. It takes great courage to swim against a popular tide or opinion. I've also spent a lot of time talking to remodelers and people who do repurpose buildings like this to kind of grasp what is involved and how much it might cost and those types of things. We spent a lot of time talking to other people in other communities about what their experiences were. In this particular decision, I am told that a counselor can also use personal experience as a decision factor. Tonight, I will exercise that right. I have a disabled son. He is 13. He is autistic. When he was young, I longed for a playground just for my son. And no, the crooked house at Bush Park is not an appropriate substitute for a disabled playground. It's not. If my son had his druthers, it would be 5 acres of swings and a jumping ground. But you cannot, it's not a disabled playground. And we need that in Salem. We have so few services for our disabled community here, and I can personally speak to you about that anytime you would like. Please feel free to email me. A playground specifically designed for disabled children is a community asset to the whole community, to the region. This will be the very first playground in this community designed especially for that. We have no other playgrounds like that. I feel the neighborhood could be proud of providing this much needed asset to our community and to a very underserved population. Indeed, the first such playground in Salem, in Scan, Ward 2, my ward. We are conditioning this request that the hospital specifically meet the conditions thereon. The bottom line, if the hospital does not comply, they do not get a permit to deconstruct Howard Hall. I see hospital people's heads nodding. Yes, good. Okay, period. Please understand these conditions as they are exact. Please look at them and understand them. They are exact. We spent a lot of time crafting them. I know there are two very strong feelings about this case, and I ask that everyone, especially people that are with the Save Howard Hall stickers, I respect that. but please step back and consider the asset that this could be to our community. I drove to Portland many, many, many times with my son because I did not have these facilities available to me. I'm lucky I have a car. I have insurance. I can do those things. There's a lot of people in our community who can't do either of those things. Please consider that when you think about this issue. I do not believe that the enduring spirit of the blind community in Salem and the region is embodied in a building. I believe that the spirit could be embodied in a sensory garden, in a playground for non-sighted children, for children with disabilities, which is exactly what the School for the Blind served for many years in this community. And I think it is all about the children, as one person said earlier. So I ask you tonight to join me in supporting this, and thank you for your patience.
Are there other comments from counselors?
Yeah, what do you say?
Other counselors? I think you've left us speechless, Counselor Tesler. You've left us speechless.
And
Yes?
just for the record, for those of us who think that we do collude, I sat here and wrote this in the last 15 minutes. Here are my pages. Okay? That's what this is about. This is my decision. Thank you.
All right, I'll speak to the motion. I've really given this a lot of thought. Obviously, we've received numerous emails and letters from the public regarding this matter that's before the council tonight. And I do really care very much about both historic properties and people with disabilities. I've been very fortunate in this community. Working at Garton Foundation was certainly an eye-opener to me about the needs of people with disabilities and also the abilities of people with disabilities. And I think we need to speak to the abilities of people with disabilities because they can access, for instance, this garden, these play structures, with tremendous joy and ability, and with every use will strengthen their bodies and their minds. I speak also in honor of the historic structures in our community. We do have many that we've saved. We have some that I've participated in, such as the historic Elsinore Theater, and certainly supporting Deepwood and Bush House over the years. I really see the value to the garden that the hospital is planning, not only to the children that will be playing there and their families, their siblings and their friends, but I also see a value to the community. I walk this neighborhood regularly. I walk all over town, but I walk this neighborhood regularly. And I'm very aware of the trees and the grass and the site that really is there today. And I realize that with this garden, that site will continue. And I think that that's a very important gift to the not only to the neighborhood, but to the community. And I appreciate the fact that the hospital has gone to the lengths that it has to plan this garden and to speak in favor of it and to go through this process, which I know has been lengthy and for everyone. So I'm going to be supporting this motion tonight, both for the reasons of the needs of people with disabilities, for the understanding of the importance of historic structures, but greater for the need for the site, which is going to be really a visual joy to everyone who's in the area and goes by that area. Thanks. Councillor Dickey.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have given this a lot of thought. I had a lot of time to think about it since the last meeting, and more people came down tonight, and I really, really appreciate all of the testimony that has come out. And so I've had some time to think, before we had the first hearing, when we had the materials, and then the last couple weeks to think about the testimony that we received, and then the testimony that we've received in between and tonight as well. And a couple things really stand out to me. I've been involved with Salem Parks since before I sat in this seat on the council, and I chaired the Parks Master Plan Committee. We have talked a lot. I've talked with a lot of neighbors about the need for this particular kind of a playground. We've started putting in playground equipment that is accessible, which is fantastic, but really something like this has been the dream of a lot of people in the community for many years. And the fact that Salem Hospital would open it to the public is really just it would be a great asset to our community that the city doesn't necessarily have the means to provide for the community. So that is something that I know has been on a lot of people's minds over the years. How could we make this happen? I have great respect for historic buildings. When I go to other communities, you just don't see the amount of buildings and structures that have been preserved the way we have taken such great care here in Salem to do that. I mean, we heard it tonight. People who testified, named off, numbers of our historic buildings, and it is really true. I think all you have to do is look around. I've tried to, over the last month or so, whenever I'm out in Salem too, I try to look around and see what is around me and all of the historic buildings that we have taken great care to preserve, and I know that we will continue to do that in the future. The Historic Landmarks Commission does such a great job of that, and I know this was a difficult decision for them as well. So for that reason, I will be supporting the motion, but I think that this is going to be a good asset for us, and I think as we move ahead, we can be looking at our other, as we continue to preserve other historic buildings around us as well, as we have the opportunity to do that.
Councilor Benars.
Who could not have given this so much thought? I've been listening to this, for the last year and a half. SCAN is, or I should say Howard Hall is not in my ward, but half of SCAN or thereabouts is in my ward. And I've been going to SCAN now for the last several years, and I've listened, before this became a public hearing issue, to arguments pro and con and all the way around. I have seen a tremendous amount of emotional response to this issue on all sides. All sides have something at stake here. I'm stuck. You've watched me tonight. You've watched me ask some questions. I hope they were good questions on both sides, poignant questions on both sides, so that nobody gets off easy. This is not an easy decision to be made. I have to sum up my idea of what I've listened to other individuals this evening and say the connection isn't necessarily the historical significance of the property. To some it is. But the significance is what the school did for the disadvantaged community. And I hope, and I see, and I think, and I know that what's going to happen now, this is going to come back. It isn't necessarily the building, as it is so much what we can do for the community that doesn't have the legs that operate like mine. My father spent a month in a rehab center, the one over on Center Street, which this will be coming from. Again, pulling from personal experience. He had to learn how to walk again. And he had to do it on street curbs, lifting his feet up and so forth. Those are things you can't necessarily learn in a room. There's some real life experiences that have got to come out of this. And I applaud what the Salem Hospital's doing in honoring those with disabilities by making this historic and wonderful park for the community. And I am nervous about the rest of the community seeing a disappearing of Howard Hall. I've listened to a lot of testimony, and I'm not sure it has the significance that people are deeming it with, as much as it has been the area, the building, the people that it represents. So in that respect, I will be supporting the motion.
All right, any further comment by councilors? Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Agree with most of the comments so far. It comes down to criteria. I believe that they've met the criteria. I was very moved by Mr. Holtz's testimony, who had lived there as a child. And it follows what Councilor Benars was just saying. It's not about the significance of the building itself, but of the activity that took place, and our desire to help those who are physically challenged. And or mentally challenged. I have an issue with people saying it's a false choice, that this thing is a great thing, they could put it anywhere on the hospital property. After Salem Health looked at this, they went back and made a plan. They knew they had a building that nobody wanted, and so to handle that proposed use being outweighing the value of retaining the designated historic resource, which is not the building because of the architect, but because of the use of it originally, that made perfect sense. Yeah, we do need one of these in there. Who's going to go out and pay for it? It's not, this isn't the city's. And that's kind of, we get into this historic thing on what the city can save and what we force someone else to save for a reason when there's no one out there who wants it. Nobody else wanted the railroad bridge either. We knew that there was a big cost associated with it. We also knew that we were looking at another bridge and the massive benefit that will come when that whole series is done, and the destination resource that will make us as well. I believe they met the criteria, and I believe that this use is of a higher and better use than maintaining the existing structure.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I agree with everything that's been said. I'm really well stated by everyone, particularly Councillor Tessler. I know her personal feelings about the importance of this park, the tremendous value it brings. I want to talk about it just slightly differently, just add one other. I'm one of those people in Salem, like I'm sure a lot of you sitting here, who put your life in the hands of Salem Hospital. And I thought about my question about perpetuity, and I thought about 26 years ago going into the hospital with a very, very serious cancer problem, and coming out and sitting here 26 years later, very close to perpetuity for this cowboy. It really, very high standard of keeping their word, meeting my health care needs, meeting my friends, my wife's, etc. I become a little disturbed, and Mr. Bauer reminded me, this is a hospital run by our neighbors. This employs 4,000 of our neighbors. That's who the healthcare community is here. And I worry about, to some extent, the suggestion of mistrust, because if I'm willing to go in, lay on the operating table and put that much trust into this hospital and the doctors that serve there, let's see, I've gone a long way down the trust road here, and I'm going to go a long way down the trust road on my belief that in the commitment and the long-term therapeutic value of this park. And I think it's important. I have no reason in my personal life to not believe this hospital won't keep its word. It did to me 26 years ago. It has since then. This is an outstanding institution. It's an institution that's making a commitment to our community by what they're doing, by locating in this location. I think sometimes people don't appreciate the tremendous value of having a hospital in our central, a cardiac specialist, full-bore hospital right in the middle of town, not headed for some outlying area, not trying to locate on the Labish onion fields, not trying to, all the other things you see going on out there, that I want to be sure to say something hopefully nice about Salem Hospital, and of course a thank you for the past 26 years, but I hope we don't ever hear this. I hope no other council has to hear this issue again. That would be a very important thing, that this never come back, that the fears that I think are constantly there, this will become a parking garage, or whatever the different emails say, is never brought up again. It's brought up by the opponents. I haven't heard it brought up by the hospital. And then I just want to just totally aside, just say I really don't like 11th hour promises there's somebody out there, some white knight that's going to solve this problem in some magical way. We've seen it over and over from the same group of people, and it hasn't proven itself to be true. I don't believe it tonight, and I find it objectionable that this kind of thing happens, and apparently happened to the Landmarks Commission, trying to influence them. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
I have to take my turn. This is a tough one. The only comment I have about the hospital is in the last 3 years, I've been down there twice, and I still have a hard time figuring out how they're not a nonprofit. Seems like it cost me a lot of money. You know, I read this report twice over the weekend, and well, not over the last 2 weeks, but this weekend especially, and trying to figure out why staff came up with the acceptance of the criteria in relation to the hospital, and then why the Landmark Commission had a different opinion. And I just had a difficult time finding, because it's not black and white, and it just becomes so subjective to what the criteria is and how do you apply it. And I think that's the thing that I struggle with the most. The testimony I respect, and it's heartfelt. There's a historical value. Man, I went to Jacksonville, Oregon, and what a beautiful community that is for historical, if you want to go with history. And I think we need to do our part on saving historical features in our community. But in this case, I think that the staff had it right the first time, and I'll be supporting that as well.
All right, any further comments? All right, we'll move for the question. It was moved by Councillor Chesler and seconded by Councillor Clem I'm going to read back through this, to reverse the decision of the Historic Landmarks Commission to approve the request to demolish Howard Hall. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to take a brief break and let people have a time to kind of readjust themselves in the council chambers, and we'll get back to work. All right, are we ready? All right, we're now at this point on public hearings. We'll address item 4B. And would the city recorder please introduce this hearing?
The City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of considering adoption of Ordinance Bill Number 10-14 relating to the sale of live animals on city property and in the public right-of-way, creating new provisions, amending SRC 95.720.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. I think Kathy's presentation is probably going to be longer than mine. But the ordinance essentially would prohibit the sale of live animals in the right-of-way. It would include all animals, not just cats and dogs. The right-of-way would include sidewalk as well as the landscaped area that's within the city dedicated right-of-way, as well as the street. It establishes a misdemeanor for violation of the ordinance, which would subject someone who violated the ordinance to a fine up to $250 and up to 30 days of imprisonment. The conduct itself, the sale of live animals, is currently unregulated under state code or state law. There's different types of regulations for retail animal sales as well as animal breeders and whatnot, but none of the regulations don't really cover this type of activity, so it's kind of not a loophole, but just something that's not regulated by state law. As far as enforcement of it, it would be up to the police to enforce it on a complaint-driven basis. And it basically it's going to rely on the citizens to let folks know that the activity is occurring. That's all I had for presentation. After the hearing tonight, we'll proceed to second reading at the next meeting.
All right, and we have some people signed up to testify, I believe. Yes, we do. We will start with Les and Joy Ray. So let's see if you would like to use a microphone at your seat. Would you like to have a microphone at your seat? All right, let's see if somebody can bring that over to you. Oh, there we are. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak. At the end of 2 minutes, the amber light will come on up on the podium, and then at the end of 3 minutes, the red light. If you'll state your name and address or your
Yes,
ward,
thank you.
please.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson and council members. My name is Joy Ray, and my husband is Les Ray, and we're the founders of Raining Cats and Dogs, RAY. I've been in dog and cat rescue for 55 years, and I represent 430 of my doggy care clients whom we have now. We're into also doggy sitting, and thousands of rescue people all over the United States. Words alone cannot even begin to tell you the horrific suffering that goes on due to the ignorance, the greediness, indifference, and sometimes pure evilness of the perpetrators. These are unconscionable acts brought onto God's precious creations, and it must stop now. There will never be enough rescue people who volunteer away their own lives to try and save just a pittance. We can never make a dent in the amount of tortured, abandoned, neglected, innocent creatures out there. We need to put a stop to every aspect of this, and now with this ordinance that will prohibit the sale of live animals on public rights of way in the city of Salem, we must all band together and protect our most precious innocent animals who cannot speak nor act on their own. We've got to stop these people from breeding for greed and then selling them to the public. Most of the animals have not been spayed nor neutered and will continue to reproduce hundreds of thousands of litters. Many have not been inoculated, will suffer devastating diseases. Some are already sick when sold, and many will go to inappropriate homes where children and even adults will neglect them and bring such harm to them. Coming from the Los Angeles area, I've been under the impression that Salem is so much more compassionate about our animals. So let's continue to keep up this reputation and put a stop once and for all to the selling and even giving away live animals on public rights of way in our city. And if this issue is low on the list of important issues, then take into consideration your wallets. Taxpayers spend $1 billion a year to pick up, house, and euthanize homeless animals, which could open 250 low-cost neuter clinics and sterilize more than 4 million of them. I have documents for everything. I have so many documents. The dogs alone in this country, taxpayers pay $1 billion annually to pick them up. The cats produce millions and millions of cats. 4,116 new kittens at the end of the 4th year, just from 1 male and 1 female. So this has got to be stopped.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Mrs. Ray? Yes, Councilor Bednarz and then Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Just curious, what ward or address are you from?
3690 Croissant Creek Road South, Salem.
Thank you.
Councilor Nanke?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming down today. Did you say you actually sell pet sales as well, or not?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no, I don't get that. No way, no.
So what,
I did
what does
rescue.
Raining Cats and Dogs do?
No. Is that what it sounded like?
Yeah. What is it a rescue group?
I know. I did rescue work for animals, for mostly cats and dogs, but any animal that came my way for over 55 years.
Okay.
I've done rescue work, and now, because of some health problems, my husband and I, we do doggy sitting in our house. And we don't even kennel them. We won't even kennel them. We make them part of the family. And these are from people who we wanted to take in spoiled dogs. My heart can't take it much longer with these rescued animals. And they all end up, they end up in the streets if we don't save them. And there's not enough. There's rescue people all over, and there's never enough to go around. We can't save them. No, I would never, ever sell them.
Oh, I just didn't know if you were.
I'm sorry
in
if I gave that impression.
It was hard to tell as you
I wanted to
started
stop. I wanted to stop.
on what Raining Cats and Dogs actually was.
Well, it's because of the name Ray,
I know,
R-A-Y.
it's great. But I was confused on what the function of that.
I'm glad you got that straightened out.
Yes, I'm glad I asked.
All right, any other questions for Mrs. Ray? All right, Laurel Hines, followed by Laura Meisner.
My name is Laurel Hines, and I don't actually live in Salem. I live in rural South Salem, so it's outside of the city limits. But I volunteered the...
Can you give your address, please, for the record?
10371 Lake Drive, Southeast. And I volunteer at Willamette Humane Society, and I am able to witness the kind of counseling and effort that goes into matching people with their pets. And I recently saw people selling pets, or I'm pretty sure they were selling pets in front of the Walmart recently in South Salem, and on the right-of-way, I'm pretty sure. And I don't believe pets should be bought on impulse. I think people should go out and shop for them. They should go out and look and spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of pet would fit their family, fit their needs, fit their lifestyle. And I think that it's wrong to allow pets being given away or sold on public property. If I saw a pet being sold on the Walmart property, for example, I could go in and complain to Walmart, and they would probably not allow it anymore. But on public property, there's not much anybody can do. So I think this is a great rule or a great law, and I think it should pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming down to testify. Are there any questions for Ms. Hines? All right, thank you. Laura Meisner, followed by Vanessa Warner.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Laura Meisner with the Coalition Advocating for Animals. I'm at 1347 Spyglass Court Southeast. You've all heard me speak before. You all know that I'm very much in favor of this ordinance. You'll hear from probably other people various more detailed reasons. But one of the things that I thought I would like to point out tonight is CAFA and PAL would like to develop probably a half-sheet paper, both sides, that the police force, and I can work with the police force on how they want to set this up, just a sheet that they can give people when they're enforcing this ordinance so that something positive can occur. And what we have on here is a listing of the shelters that you can take dogs and cats to, the rescues, where you can get spay-neuter assistance. What we want is a positive outcome in enforcing this ordinance, so that when the police do go and ask people not to be giving away free kittens, not to be selling dogs, that they can give those individuals a resource in which to then, have other ways to deal with the animals. If they choose to keep them, spay-neuter assistance, information, whatever. Because I do want this to be where we're not just having an ordinance, but we're actually helping to get information out there to assist people and not just, slapping the hand. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Meisner? Yes, Councilor Dickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming down. I am curious to know if you have worked at all with either Marion or Polk counties and approached them about an ordinance like this. I'm thinking of areas in East Salem where all they have to do is cross the street. So they, the code enforcement, someone comes by, hands them the paper, so they just take their box of puppies and cross the street. So I'm just curious to know if you know of any efforts with either county.
Well, to be very honest, I have had that discussion, and what I'm looking forward to is when you all have this ordinance go into pass and go into place here in Salem, that I can turn around and talk to our county commissioners and say, I think Marion County needs to have the same, so that one side of Lancaster we have enforcement versus the other side of Lancaster where there's no enforcement. So I'm looking forward to Salem being the leader on this, so that we can go then to the county and say, hey, we've got this here in Salem, now we need to expand it to the county. But yes, I am going to have those discussions. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome to the public hearing. We finally made it. Question on those folks that sell animals from the public right away. How much do they charge? Do you know?
In some cases, they're just giving away kittens. When it's kittens, it's usually a giveaway. When it's puppies, it can be anywhere from a couple of $100s to several $1,000s. And this doesn't come under the ordinance, but if you think about it, I'm sure that's not going on their income tax return. So, and this is not an ordinance that's going to prevent people from selling animals, because, you can certainly do that out of your home, or, if you have a private business somewhere. It's just not appropriate to be on our public thoroughfares. So if people want to, this is not an anti-commerce, if people want to sell them, they can do that. I mean, I myself run a rescue and adopt, now I'm not selling them, but I rescue kittens and adopt them out of my home all the time. But I don't feel I have to set up a card table in front of Walmart to find good adopters and place animals.
A couple other quick questions, if I may.
Certainly.
Humane Society. I'm looking at the little girl with a box full of kittens because they either had their own cat or the stray cat came in and it had kittens and they don't know what the heck to do with them.
And
If I
here's a
take
sheet that
them
will tell
to the Humane Society, they request a donation from me, correct?
But I've already discussed that with BJ, who will be talking to you here in a couple
Excellent.
of minutes.
I can't
And,
wait, because some people feel pressured, even if it's like, well, I
It's,
can't.
well, first of all, it's a suggested donation, if I'm correct. And I've already mentioned to BJ that if we can get something like this developed with the police department, if the police department hands this to those individuals, and then they take this with them to the Humane Society, they will not be, in other words, if they can afford a donation, wonderful, but it's not going to be a requirement should they be bringing their puppies or kittens or whatever in. The Humane Society will certainly help them.
And I still have some concern over that element, but that's kind of a one-time thing for most of the little girl with the box of kittens.
Well, and the
But
little
my
girl with the
concern is
box of
the,
kittens can also call Salem Friends of Felines, can
Right.
also contact me,
But
CAFA.
the people who
other
are
places.
selling for money,
Right.
big money,
Right.
are already required to be registered, and I'm assuming they're not. If they make more than $250 a year, that's selling one puppy.
That's something that other people have to look into, but I know for a fact that a number of these people who are selling puppies at a huge, price tag, I would just be very, I mean, all I can tell you is, and this is, again, this isn't a court of law, so this is hearsay, but I know somebody who works for a large vet hospital and has, less than reputable breeders brag all the time about all the money they make under the table. And they brag about it at the vet hospital, this guy. I made $200,000 last year and I didn't have to declare a penny of it.
So is the state system broken? Are we calling the state people when we see somebody with a box of puppies for over $250 a piece? Because if they sell one, they need to be registered, and that throws them into another. I mean, we have city councilors being called, but are we calling the actual people who can enforce the current laws on the books? I hate making a new law for something when there's already one there that would capture the element.
This one will just get rid of them being on the sidewalks.
But then they'll go across
public
the
health.
street.
Well,
On
and
Lancaster.
if we can get Marion County to cooperate, if you guys do the right thing first, I'm sure we can get Marion County to cooperate, and then at least from that standpoint, and it's not just the selling, it's also really the public health concern that's really important. So that if somebody is selling, animals, and whether it's dogs or cats or whatever, they can be doing it from their home and still not declaring it to the IRS or whoever.
Sure.
There's not much you can do, about that sort of thing. Our concern with this ordinance is it gets it off the streets. It stops with the public health concern, with the animals getting diseased, you taking it home on your clothes to your animals that may not be up to date with their vaccinations, and then they get diseased. It's just taking it off of our public thoroughfare. It really doesn't need to be there.
Okay, thanks.
All
Gave me a
right,
great
thank you
question.
very much. Oh, all right. Vanessa Warner, followed by BJ Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson and City Council members. My name is Vanessa Warner, and my address is 309 Willow Way in Monmouth. Tonight, I am here representing Salem Friends of Felines. We see the results every day from unaltered, unwanted, and stray cats. It's our belief that no pet should be rehomed without being spayed and neutered, and the majority, if not all, these animals that are sold or given away on city property are unaltered. The amount of homeless pets is heartbreaking, and we believe this ordinance is a step in the right direction to decrease the amount of homeless and unwanted loving animals. Thank you.
Sorry, apologize. All right, are there any questions? All right, B.J. Anderson, followed by Deborah West-Powell.
Hi, my name is BJ Anderson. I'm here tonight representing Willamette Humane Society in Ward 3. I myself live in Scioto, Oregon, where there's not a lot of resources for cats. The issue tonight, I'm not going to take a lot of time because you guys have been listening to a lot, and I don't think that this is really a terribly complicated or huge issue that we're looking at tonight. I don't think it's really even very controversial. I don't think it's going to solve the problem either. The two problems that we're facing is irresponsible breeding of animals and the overpopulation of cats. The irresponsible breeding of animals generally is dogs. Nobody's really breeding cats out there trying to make a buck at all. Trust me. So we do have a problem with boxes of free kittens. And a lot of those boxes of free kittens are not of age to be weaned. They're being given away younger than they should be taken from their moms because people just don't know. They are also carriers of disease. A lot of those young kittens are at risk of dying just because they carry so many fleas. And the people that are giving them away and the people that are accepting them have no idea of what they're taking on. So regardless of whether they're going to be spayed or neutered in the future, they have immediate health needs oftentimes that are not identified when they're given away. There are resources for those litters of kittens, and yes, it is a donation and a suggested one for stray groups of kittens. And we have assistance for people who are bringing in animals, especially those litters of cats. We have assistance funds at the shelter to help with their surrender fees if they're owned. And we have resources for spay and neuter of the adult cats. So we have resources, and I love Laura Meisner. I want to say thank you for championing this whole idea and for the idea of having information resources for the enforcement officers. What we're asking in this is not to solve the problem, but to have another resource in the community when somebody has a complaint about dogs being sold or kittens being given away on their property, that police officers have a resource. They have somebody they can refer to. They have a right to respond because the person is doing something against the law. So that's really what we're asking here, is just to have another resource in the community to help channel these animals to the right places. And we'll do our part to educate people on what it means to find a responsible breeder and to take proper care of your cats or to adopt at a shelter or animal rescue.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Ms. Anderson? Yes, Councilor Benars?
Thank you. I applaud everything that you do at Willamette Humane Society. I have a very dear dog that I adopted from you. My question is, it's exactly what has troubled me with this. This is like a no-brainer. This is like, yeah, let's do it. But what does it really accomplish? What can we really get done? Is this just the first step of a very long trek across the country? What more can this council do, or this community do, to help stem some of those issues of people buying or trying to go into puppy farms? From your position, what could we do?
I don't want to take that much time.
Then send me an email or send us an email.
Yeah.
Send us an email because I mean, this is one of those things that's a no-brainer. It's not right. Something has to change.
There are a lot of things that need to change. There's a huge amount of education. I think the state has been exemplary in leading the way with the work that we did on breeding animals and the regulation that we have and the enforcement, the regulations for shelters. We are on the right track, and there is a lot more that we can do. We are working with a coalition of a lot of these amazing ladies who are here tonight, representing organizations that are working to provide free spay and neuter services for free roaming cats. And we're not defining those as feral, we're defining those as free roaming. So the cats that are in the community, not altered, we're putting together a program to provide free spay and neuter services for those so that we can stabilize the cat population in our community. We're doing pretty well with dogs. We need to address the education piece about how to find, if you want to get a purebred dog or you want to get a specific kind of puppy or you're looking for something that's not in the shelter right now, how do you identify the right place to get that? And that's an education issue. We're looking at it at the state level on a regulation issue of what does it mean to be a responsible breeder, and the bar still is pretty lenient.
Nebulous.
Very lenient. You can still have an awful lot of dogs breeding and still be considered okay. But we're on the right track, and I'll send you guys more information.
Please keep us posted.
That'd be great. Other questions? Thank you very much. I appreciate the work that you're doing at the Willamette Humane Society, and I know that our city certainly does depend upon the services there, as does the surrounding areas. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us tonight.
Yeah. All right. Deborah West-Paul, and then Janet Para. Deborah?
Hi, good evening.
Welcome.
I've been here before, and I'm with PAL Prevent-A-Litter. And
Oh, I
PAL
see.
and CAPA have worked closely on promoting and getting this ordinance passed. And this evening, I'd like to read a statement from someone who is unable to be here, but she's in both worlds. She has bred dogs, and she also does rescue. So this is Barbara Griffin, and she's a longtime English teacher at Sprague High School. And I gave you each a copy because due to the time restraints, I've done some editing, but you can all read it. This is Barbara Griffin's statement. The City of Salem needs to prohibit selling live animals on street corners and in parking lots. Driving around Salem, one sees puppies being peddled like vegetables in various locations around our city. Many things need to be understood in regard to how wrong it is to hawk puppies and kittens in a parking lot. I have been involved in the dog world most of my life. I show my dogs and compete in agility, have trained and competed in conformation, agility, obedience, barn hunt, and a variety of canine activities. I have bred dogs over the years, and I have been and am involved in rescue. There are many aspects to think about in regard to the sale of puppies. A conscientious breeder looks out for the welfare of both the puppies and the buyers. Quality food is fed to parents and puppies, giving them a healthy start. Breeding stock is researched carefully. Health screening is essential prior to breeding. Potential breeding pairs are tested for a variety of genetic problems. Temperament and personality are important in a household pet. A responsible breeder works with the puppies from the time they were born. They are handled, socialized, and the breeder works to ensure that each puppy is given attention and experiences to help each become good companions. Puppies are matched to owner, and hence personality traits of both family and puppy are carefully considered. A responsible breeder looks out for the welfare of both his puppies and their buyers by helping people select the right puppy and the right breed for them. Mismatches result in owners getting rid of dogs, and many of these dogs end up in already overcrowded shelters. Sadly, as a result, some end up in rescue, but many others aren't as lucky and are euthanized. I am active in rescue for my breed. I see dogs dumped once they pass the cute puppy stage. Unfortunately, some owners decide that their impulse buy is too much trouble. They have not been mentored or educated, so an easy fix is to unload their problem. Shelters are filled with dogs people no longer want. A puppy should not be purchased on a whim. Responsible breeders have a waiting period before the buyer is allowed to take a puppy home. It is important that a new owner have time to think and know that adding a puppy is a big commitment and not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Street corner puppies do not have these advantages.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt, but thank you for
Didn't edit
bringing the
enough, so
testimony to us.
thank you.
Are there questions from any counselors? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, Janet Braba? I'm not saying your name correctly, I don't think. Janet from Barnes Avenue Southeast. Maybe that person has left already. All right, we'll move on to Pat Vimal. No, I'm sorry, Raj Jamal. Not here. And Jody Edmond.
My name is Jody Edmond, and I actually live in Brooks, so I'm not technically in the city, but I come to represent the rural people that end up dealing with the animals that get dumped because people don't want them. My whole world started about 2 years ago when somebody dumped a male in my yard, and then a feral female had 2 litters of kittens under my house. Through the Feral Cat Coalition, I was able to get everybody fixed. Through Salem Friends of Felines, I was able to get 5 of them homed to new homes. And I just want to say that I like what Laura and what they're doing as far as educating people, because you know, I feel like I saved 12 lives of cats that have come, and they're well fed. But you know, people need to know that they can't. There's resources here. There's the Humane Society. There's resources that people can take their animals to if they don't want them. And we also have a rescue greyhound as well. So thank you for your time.
All right. Are there any questions by counselors? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to testify. I think, is there anyone left in the chambers that had wanted to testify on this matter? All right. I'm so sorry. Would you please come to the microphone and introduce yourself and give us your address or your ward, please?
Good evening. My name is Denise Smith, and my address is 1165 14th Street Northeast. Good evening. Thanks for hearing this, and I'm really just proud that this is even on the agenda. So Debbie and Laura both, thank you for your advocacy of getting this out there. And BJ, thanks for everything that you said. I have approached people that have been having their kittens and their puppies on the sidewalk outside of Walmart. And the last time I did that, I approached 2 children. The oldest was maybe about 12 years old. These were mixed breed little puppies that weren't even old enough to be weaned. And they were trying to sell them for a few $100s, and they had absolutely no shots or any kind of immunizations. And this is kind of par for the course for the animals that are out there. So my own heart and advocacy is it is very unhealthy for those cats and dogs that are in this kind of position, and they are quite vulnerable. So thank you for hearing this tonight, and thanks for any advocacy to pass this ordinance.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from counselors? Nope, I guess not. Oh, wait a moment. Counselor Nanke.
Thank you. When you've seen the youth with the animals, be it puppies or kittens, no parental?
None. I asked.
Another question.
Yeah, another question. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. All right. We have time for question for staff, and then we'll close the hearing. Any questions for our legal counsel, Counselor Nanke or Counselor Bennett?
Madam Mayor, I think before we get started on this, I'd like to move that we extend the council meeting until 10:30.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Bennett and seconded by Counselor Benars to extend the council meeting until 10:30. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Counselor Nanke, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a couple of them, Madam Mayor. Thank you. If this ordinance were to be in place, can I put a sign out with a phone number advertising the sale of puppies or kittens in the public right-of-way? Most people stick their signs in the public right-of-way illegally, but can I actually put a sign up that basically just gives a phone number?
This ordinance wouldn't affect your inability to already put a sign out in the right-of-way.
Okay. Thank you. City property and public right-of-way. A lot of times, right-of-way actually comes across the sidewalk in front of my house and has a piece of my yard, even though I'm required to take care of the sidewalk and the trees and water the lawn. I would not be able to sell kittens from a box on the sidewalk in front of my house if it was located inside of the public right-of-way, correct?
That's correct.
And finally, $250 fine. From what I looked at that, there's no up to $250 fine, $250 fine for everyone. What is our level of discretion?
The ordinance actually states up to 250.
Okay. But if somebody complains about someone and they see them, they'll be issued a citation then. Who makes the determination on whether or not, oh, well, you're first time, $20, or no, you've been out there and I catch you every other week, no escalator?
It can't exceed 250, so it's, every day is a new violation, though, so if the next day they're out there selling puppies again.
That's right, never mind. It was $250 per day of occurrence. Okay. I'll address the rest in deliberations. Thank you.
All right. All right, any more questions for staff? Counselor Dickey.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of follow on the questions that Councilor Nanke asked earlier. In terms of, I'm not sure who this goes to, but if a child is selling animals on the street, who gets the citation? Would an officer just hand them the information? Is there an attempt to contact their parents? I mean, can you kind of explain?
Jerry might be able to answer this better than I can, but I believe the child would be issued the citation.
Good evening, Jerry Moore, Chief of Police. It depends on how old the child is. I guess technically, if it's a misdemeanor, we could refer him to the Marion County Juvenile Department. And I would guess, knowing my officers, that if we found a child doing something like that, we'd try to get hold of their parents and try and take care of business that way.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, I would entertain a motion.
I actually have just
I'm sorry.
one point of clarification.
Yes.
There's a lot of testimony about the giving away of animals. This ordinance only affects the sale of live animals, not giving them away.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions of staff? All right, then we close the hearing. And I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to move to advance ordinance bill number 1014 to second reading for enactment.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Benars to move the ordinance bill number 1014 to a second reading for enactment. Is there discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Bennett?
Thank
and
you.
then Councilor
I was really
Clem.
pleased to have been approached by Laura and company, Laura Meisner and company, in terms of advancing this. I think it's a good first step. I will be taking a look at it. I didn't realize, I want to take another look at the question of free animals, see what we've got here in advance of the second reading, and may present an amendment whether you want to go with it or not. But I'm concerned that it may not cover a whole raft of animals that are really being harmed by this. I am just convinced, having been out to the one that I think we all point to, which is out on Walmart on South Commercial, it's just a real stunner. It is real disturbing, particularly on hot days like today. And although I'm not saying I went out there today and saw, I was on a similar day, and it bothered me. And as I talked with people about it, it's clear that's only one situation. We have a series of them going on around town where these dogs are being sold. These dogs are being sold without a clear history of the kind of care, health care that you would kind of expect, veterinary care you would expect with an animal. They're being sold, some of them are expensive breeds. They're questionable health. The whole thing is just kind of, you want to just step back and genuinely have a real serious look at what kind of society we represent. And I don't want to be in a city or on a city council that doesn't take this on, at least in the public right-of-way. This does nothing to people in terms of going to Nenke's front yard beyond the right-of-way and and putting their sign out, but or anyone. I mean, they can still engage in this business, and that may be for some other venue. That might be for the state legislature to look at. I don't know. But I'm going to continue to look at this as a kind of ongoing project. I think it's important that we take this issue on. We really have lost over the years an animal welfare system at the county level, which we all grew up with, which was, sort of the dog control, animal control. That's all gone. Councilor Rogers led us in the discussion of dogs that bark forever in the neighborhood and you can't get them to stop, and you've got nobody to call. I mean, we've had to take this on by necessity or as a function of being a humane society, and I think that in a general sense, and so I think this is just a real opportunity for us to make a statement on this issue, and I hope we'll continue to work on these issues over time.
Thank you. Councillor Clem and then Councillor Namke.
I'm obviously in support of it. My concern is a false sense that the police don't have a whole lot of other things going on at the time the complaint's filed. And then by the time they get there, people may be gone. So let's don't be naive. This is a great first step to a lot of other step that needs done. But please be patient. The police officers know how to treat children, and the sergeants know what the priorities are for public safety. And getting to that person selling puppies may just not be the first highest priority. So let's remember that this is a step, not necessarily a solution.
Our city attorney would like to make a
Mea
notation.
culpa. Actually, reading the ordinance, it talks about giving away animals as well. So the giving away of animals would be covered, would be prohibited as well.
I won't be amending it then.
All right. I think Councillor Namke is next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you probably know, I have a couple of concerns in regards to this. One being knowledge. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. So how are we going to let everybody in the city know that you can't be out on your sidewalks with a box, or your police are going to come and issue a $250 citation? That being said, most of these people, the ones that I think we're really the most concerned about are ones who purposefully are set on making a profit at the expense of animal welfare. Knowing the state has programs in place and probably do very little, knowing the county does very little, I will support the ordinance as written. I pray we have some kind of discretion in how we address this as it goes forward, because we're going to get some screamer emails and some really unhappy people when little Julie pops a 250 out in her sidewalk. It's going to be fun, but we need to stop the abuse that's happening as well. So we'll have to weigh that as it comes forward and figure out if we need to tweak something based on that. I just hope that the police and the judge have a goodly amount of discretion, which is the more prescriptive we make laws, the harder it is to deal with people on a human basis based on their intentions and the gut feel of our officers, who basically know if somebody has no clue versus somebody who is purposefully trying to profit at the expense of others.
Thank you. Councillor Dickey.
Thank you. I will be supporting this. I think this is absolutely the right thing to do. And as others have said, I think this is just a start. And even just hearing the testimony tonight, I can think of a lot of other things that we could do to enhance what we're starting with. The two concerns that I have that have kind of already been brought up, one, just outside of the city limits, both Marion County and Polk County both, that is something that needs to be addressed, because it won't solve the problem in certain areas if people can just cross the street or go around the corner or something. But this would not be the first time that Salem has done something that our counties have then followed suit after we've started the ball rolling. The other concern, and I think that, and I have full faith in our law enforcement. I would be remiss if I didn't say the concern that I wouldn't want to see a child somehow start a juvenile record simply because their parents said, you're going down to Walmart with a box of puppies. So, and I trust our law enforcement that, that is not going to happen, but that is something that, I want to make sure that they're aware of, that we don't have this. I really think that, I really like what the paper, Laura, you said that you had that, it provides resources, provides options for people. And, I think if we can be positive about it and show them those things, then I think the people that don't know what the law is because they are not up at 10 o'clock tonight watching this meeting, they can get the information, and that will be good. And then, there will be repeat offenders. And I think that the law enforcement will know who they are after some time, and will deal with them appropriately.
All right, any further comments? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we have a third public hearing. Would the city recorder please introduce this hearing?
The City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of considering adoption of Ordinance Bill Number 814 relating to sign code, amending SRC 900.200 and 900.210. Persons may appear either in person or with representation by an attorney and provide testimony. Only those participating at the hearing in person or by submission of written testimony have the right to appeal the final decision.
Thank you, and we have a staff report. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councilors. I'm Amy Dixon. There. Amy Dixon with the City of Salem Planning Division. We are here tonight to discuss amendment to the sign code that would increase vehicle viewing signs, also known as menu boards, from 24 square feet in area to 32 square feet in area. So what are we talking about? Vehicle viewing signs, also known as menu boards, are typical signs that fast food restaurants use to in their drive-through lanes to display menu items for customers to use while they're ordering. At first, menu boards were not considered signs, and sometime in the early 1990s, this changed due to changes in federal and state speech laws. Once they were considered sign, they were subject to the sign code regulations. The current code limits them to 24 square feet in area, making most of the menu boards in Salem non-conforming. Staff began to hear from fast food industries that there had been a significant increase in the demand of drive-through usage, and that their expectations and requirements placed on them by national corporations for specific size of signage. Under the current code, a long and costly variance process is necessary to allow menu boards to meet their needs of their businesses. A variance was recently approved at this location to allow a 32 square foot menu board. The only comments that staff received was from South Gateway Neighborhood Association indicating they had no objections to it. The existing code limits the menu board to 24 square feet in area, which is depicted by the green. The proposed would add a mere 8 square feet in area as indicated in the red for a total of 32 square feet, eliminating the need for most variances. When reviewing 10 fast food restaurants in Salem, keep in mind these are just, not all of them, it's just a sampling. Only 4 businesses have complying signs. If the ordinance was approved, 7 of the 10 would be conforming. The other 3 would continue to have non-conforming signs. These signs may remain for the Life of the sign. When replaced, the business would need a variance to allow a smaller, or a similar size sign. During outreach, Grant Neighborhood Association, Northeast Neighborhood Neighbors, and 3 citizens recommended keeping the signs at 24. North Gateway Neighborhood Association, South Sunny Slope, and West Salem Neighborhood Association, 2 citizens and McDonald's restaurant recommended increasing the sign to 32 square foot as proposed. The Chamber of Commerce recommended increasing to 48 square feet. Based on the need to remove the long and costly variance process where very little public concern has been received, staff is recommending that council advance the ordinance to second reading for enactment. That completes my presentation.
Thank you. Do we have anyone signed up to testify this evening for this? I see a Doug Bates? Yes, welcome. And just state your name and address, please. And you have 3 minutes to testify.
Okay.
Is that correct? 3 minutes on this issue, 3 minutes to testify. At the end of 2 minutes, the amber light comes on. At the end of 3 minutes, the red light. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Doug Bates, and I represent McDonald's Regional Office, and the operators in the Salem market are my customers. And what I'm here this evening, my address is 12131, 113th Avenue Northeast, Suite 103, Kirkland, Washington. And what I'm here tonight is in support of the motion in front of you here. The Kubler restaurant down, that the variance, Amy mentioned the variance on last year, was quite a process to try and get the second menu board to have a side-by-side drive-through to be the same size as the primary menu board that was existing. And one thing that my support letter states, and I think everyone's had a chance to look at that, is that all of our existing menu boards within the city limits are 32 square foot today. So all we're asking for is to be able to maintain those as the typical menu board for McDonald's and any of the other fast food restaurants. There are some that are larger, and that certainly can be something for discussion as well. But you know, what I wanted to make mention was that both the operators in the Salem market have made significant investment to put the new brand on the building, as we're doing nationally, and to add a side-by-side drive-through when we can. That is where 70% of our business comes through. So it's really important to have the menu viewing areas to be identical. Customers can pick out the orders quickly and process through the side-by-side drive-through quickly, so that congestion is minimized. And we have much more queuing in a side-by-side drive-through to do that. Staff is in support of this 32 square foot at least, and I support that, and I look for your support tonight.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councilor Nanke?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming down tonight. Because none of your competition is here, I'll ask you on your perspective. All of your signs are 32?
Correct.
Both for each staging location?
They are pretty much everywhere nationally.
And wouldn't that be the case with the sizes that were designated for your competition? That's their standard size?
Whatever their square footage is, probably, yes.
So if you were one of those other businesses, you would be standing here saying, hey, how about boosting that up so that my sign's included rather than being left out, because they'll still have to pay variance fees all across the board.
I would think that they would want to be in support of that, too.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, other questions? Councilor Benars?
So I don't expect you're going to have this answer, but what percentage of the signs that McDonald's has is the actual written verbiage of the product that you're selling and its price as relative to the amount of product or is being displayed as a picture trying to sell the product simply because of its vision?
I'm not sure I'm going to answer the question correctly, but each one of the sections up there represents eight gross square feet, and the visible area is 7.8. So the illuminated area of each panel, if you will, is 7.8 square feet.
I guess what I'm trying to reach to is the amount of how many square feet do you need to have for a menu that has 50, 60 items? Most of the menu that's there is not in written form with a price. It is a picture of something that's advertisement.
McDonald's needs at least 32 square feet. It's a
You're doing your job, okay.
If we got 40, we'd try and use it.
I can see that there is a community that I live around about healthy food, and they're just saying all you're doing is making an advertisement of getting to people to eat food. Though we are reducing the congestion in the traffic line running up to the front window, you're not reducing the congestion in the arteries of the people who are consuming the food. And it's just a political statement, but it's one that I wondered how much of this is being sold by the word and how much of it's being sold by a picture of something delicious.
Well, there's also requirements in certain jurisdictions for the calories, to be listed on the menu boards, which we conform with. And we also have so many more menu items that are healthier because that's what our customers want. So I encourage you to come taste test them because they're very good and they're much healthier too.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? No, all right, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming and appreciate your testimony.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So we close Is there any other testimony tonight on this matter? All right, I see none, so I close this public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Councilor Rogers.
On your list of non-conformance today, do they have variances on record?
Quite a few of those came in prior to when we were considering them not signs, and then we were handling them a little different. So there are some that have come in that are non-conforming.
Thank you.
Councilor Benars.
Real quick question. So in this example that we're watching on the PowerPoint, there's a little menu off to the side that's tagged on. It's not illuminated. Is that part of the square footage?
No. That would be part of those are more temporary, and they would be classified as their temporary signage that they're allowed for their property.
So how much square footage do they get for that?
It depends on the size of the property. If it was about 10,000 square feet for the property, they can have 16 square feet of temporary signage for their property. And that includes the little the little lawn signs, things like that.
Well, that's half the size of what we're proposing here. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any further questions of staff? Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So how much did you say the variance process actually cost?
I didn't say how much it costs. It's about $2,500, and about a 6 to 8 month or 8-week process.
And attorneys and whoever's that have to be involved as well as a cost for the.
And it goes before a hearings officer.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any further questions of staff? All right. Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to close the hearing. Councilor Bennett, do you have a motion?
I do, Madam Mayor. I move the staff's recommended action that increases the display surface space for vehicle viewing sign from 24 square feet to 32 square feet.
Second.
Madam Mayor, I just one comment. I'm sure everyone had a chance in neighborhood groups. I had I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 chances over the past year or so to watch Amy work this issue. She did a fantastic job. She had, when you say 42 square feet or 24 square feet, 32 square feet, and some of these others, she actually had a thing that allowed people to see exactly what the size looked like. It was just extremely well done. It was real model of how to work an issue over time and get people to a point. She couldn't get my neighborhood groups there, but she tried really, really hard. She satisfied me on this issue, that this just is the best way to go on this.
Good. All right. Then Counselor Nanki.
Throw it up for substitute motion to modify the square footage to increase up to 48 square feet.
Is there a second? All right. We're back to the original motion then.
If I may comment on that.
Yes. Which are you commenting on? On the original motion?
On the original motion
Thank
that's
you.
on the floor.
All right. Yes?
I don't like the equity factor across that. I mean, you saw a list of several businesses. They all have a standard nationally, and we picked the number that ended at McDonald's. So Taco Bell has to spend several $1,000s in attorneys, Taco Bell. If in fact they want to do similar. So I look at it from the equity. I'm assuming that's why the chamber recommended going up to that, because that covers the entirety of that industry inside of our city limits. So hence the motion that died for lack of second, without even a second, for discussionary purposes.
All right. All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries with Counselor Nanki registering a no vote. All right, thank you. We have a fourth and final public hearing with let's see, we have no testimony, and I believe the city recorder, first of all, I believe Counselor Dickey makes a motion. I do have notes on this. All right, Counselor Dickey?
Thank you. Make sure I'm on the right public hearing here. I move that City Council adopt order number 2014-06-CPC-NPC-ZC-CU-ZA-SPR in the matter of reversing the decision of the Planning Commission and denying the consolidated applications for property located at 2630 Church Street Northeast.
It's been moved by Counselor Dickey and seconded by Counselor Nanki. Is there discussion? Oh, all right. Counselor Bednarz?
I'm just curious, if no new information, so this is the same thing we voted on 2 weeks ago. At this point, we still have some people that are out on the street, presumably, or someplace that was in that home that they've been removed at this point? Or is that after? Did I get this wrong?
What is the question?
Never mind.
All right, thank you very much.
Please talk to me afterwards. We can get you up to speed.
I think we're getting a little tired here. All right, we have a motion before us, and I do apologize. Now I'm really tired. There was a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor Nanki. And is there discussion on the motion? No. All right, then we proceed to, I believe that the city recorder takes a vote on this. No? I wonder why I wrote that down. All right. Okay. Motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
You can talk to the public. Go for it.
All right. I'm going, yes, Counselor Bennett, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move we go until 10:45 and then we're done. Come on.
Yes, I was just going to
you wanna
suggest,
move?
and I've talked to Margot and the chief about moving the medical marijuana discussion to August 11.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I want, okay.
Okay.
Then I think all that's left is Tesler's council motion.
That's it.
Second reading.
And one second reading in that. Do we need a motion to change the agenda?
Yes.
All right, I would entertain a motion to change the agenda regarding the special orders of business.
Second.
Madam Mayor, I'll move.
So moved.
I believe the motion is to move that to August 11th.
Yes. To move special orders of business, item 5A, to August 11th.
We could,
Moved by
or the
Counselor
manager
Dickey,
could just put it on the
seconded by-
agenda.
Who seconded it?
We don't
By
need a
Counselor
motion.
Nanki. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we will move to ordinances, a second reading. Excuse me,
Madam Mayor?
Glenn Gross has his hand up. Yes.
Yeah, did you cover the information reports?
Yes.
No. Well, actually, the investment portfolio report was covered earlier in the evening, and I should note that there are 3 items in the information reports in your binder, including one about the mobile food unit pods, where pods could be located, which I know we asked you to come back with that. Thank you for that, that information. All right, are there any questions about the information reports? No. All right. Thank you. Then we will move to the ordinances for the second reading, 8.2A.
Ordinance Bill Number 1514, extending the term of agreement with Clear Wireless LLC, formerly Clearwire US LLC, for placement of wireless facilities in the public rights-of-way and declaring an emergency. Counselor Dickey? Aye. Counselor Rogers? Aye. Counselor Benars?
Aye.
Counselor Clem?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler? Aye. Counselor Nanki?
Aye.
Counselor Clausen is absent. Mayor Peterson?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, now we'll move on to new business and item 10.2, Counselor's item 10.2A. Counselor Tessler, do you have a motion?
I sure do, thank you. I would like to move that the City Council direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending the Salem Revised Code, SRC, to allow the use of goats in prescribed grazing to clear vegetation and control invasive plant species.
It's been moved by Counselor Tessler and seconded by Counselor Nanki. Thank you. And is there discussion?
Yeah, just a tad. I've been approached by a number of different parties, including our own city, who we would really like to allow prescribed grazing by goats. Some of you may have been to Portland and see the goats in the parking lot and other areas. Metro uses them up there. We need to amend the code to allow goats because currently that is not a use that's allowed. I am proposing we amend the code to allow this sustainable and environmentally sensitive approach to vegetation management, not to allow goats as pets, although they are fun pets, but they're not fun in the city, I think. So that's what I'm doing tonight, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Counselor Rogers and then Counselor Nanki.
I guess my question, I don't have a problem with what you want to do as far as the critters out there. I just don't want to see them become the family pet after they eat the berries. But why couldn't this be done, or staff come back with some recommendations versus a code change, but maybe a permit process?
That's the plan. Currently, I have to ask council, I have to put a motion on the council floor to ask for more than an hour of staff time. And so this is what is triggering me to ask staff to do exactly what you just described.
Thank you. I like this motion.
I thought you would.
Counselor Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd received phone calls from Pringle Creek community on the Fairview property as well, wanting this to take place. We've actually talked about it a couple of years ago. People had brought it forward as well. And that would be, not that they get a goat for that purpose and then it becomes their pet. There's people that actually rent them out. And so that would be a business model for someone. They couldn't reside inside of the city of Salem necessarily unless we had some provision that a goat leasing business could somehow be, but I don't know how. It's more so allowing them inside of the city because there are places outside of the city that have them for rent, and rather than me take big old nasty thorns from my blackberries that get Katie Wampus on me, it's nice when somebody will just eat them.
Good idea. All right. Counselor Benars.
Thank you. As an owner of 3 chickens, I don't want these goats to become an issue like chickens were several years ago. I wasn't on council at the time, but I know that there was a lot of time spent, staff, and public time, period. I am keenly aware, as I'm at Minto Park on a daily basis, that there's plenty of manpower out there that seems to be removing berry bushes all over the place. I think, if I understand the intent, it's environmentally sensitive locations, more specific, not just any location, and that's why it's chosen this direction. I'm going to hesitantly support the motion. I want to move this forward to see what staff has to say about it, but I'm far from being ready to vote on an issue here at this point. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right. It's been moved by Councillor Tesler and seconded by Councillor Nanke to amend the Salem Revised Code allowing the use of goats for the purpose of vegetation management and removal. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And I apologize, don't leave your seats. I misread the agenda and I failed to draw attention to item number 9, public comment, and we do have an individual signed up, and that's AP Walter, and from Ward 1.
Yeah, just for 5. Madam,
Second.
yeah, extend for 5 minutes.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to extend the time by 5 minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Hello. I promise I'll only take 3 minutes. My name is AP Walther, Ward 1. I want to talk about an important issue, I guess, to close out the evening for you guys. This is really important. It's about my neighborhood. I've been downtown for too many years now, owning businesses, working, living. There's been, over this last year, a real problem downtown with the policy that this body put in place. It's been almost a year now since you changed the parking policy downtown. Went from our 2-hour, to the kind of the policy we used to have, where it was time restricted, or not a time restriction, so you could park as long as you wanted. The problem is that you failed to implement the full policy, which includes the restriction of the employee parking. You said you were going to enforce that. That seems to be lip service, from what I can see. That everyone downtown can see that employee parking is not enforced. I walk around every day and talk to business owners, my neighbors. They confide in me as to where they park. The employees park on the street. The managers park on the street. Word is that as long as you kind of move it around a little bit, you're not going to get noticed. You're not going to get complaints. You can just get away with it. It's causing a major problem. And I say major problem for, the business owners that have already closed over this last year. I know there's a lot of turnover and everybody likes to blame the parking policies or whatever, but it is a real problem, and it is really affecting. Today, Monday morning, businesses open their shop and they're trying to pay their employees, they're trying to pay their rent and run their business, and they struggle to do that because of the policy. There was a parking task force that the mayor put together last year, but I think the backlash of that was the parking initiative that was signed. And it was, a lot of the downtown businesses collected signatures for that. I personally signed that, and I encouraged people to sign it. I don't know how I would have voted had I been given a chance to do that. But what I think is you start out including the downtown businesses and the downtown stakeholders. A vote to the public would have included everybody, including customers, people that use downtown. They would have been able to look at that issue and decide whether it was valid or not. Maybe council would have had a competing motion on the table. We could have had a community discussion about that. But we haven't been able to have that discussion. It's really hurting a lot of businesses. And so I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask if you would change that policy, enforce the employee, or go back to the 2-hour.
Thank you.
Something.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Walther? All right, thank you. Appreciate you coming down. Appreciate you staying. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just a real quick one, because we buzzed straight over the top information reports. I want to thank staff for having the potential locations for the food
apologize.
pods downtown, the
Yeah,
food
thank
truck
you for
pods.
that.
That was a real quick turnaround. It was an excellent report.
I do apologize, Mr. Gross. It really was not fair of me to just flip right past that. Sorry. Thank you.
It's tough when we're pushing the clock, but I was almost like, bring it back on so we can have a discussion on it next meeting, because we're adjourned.